OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30. It's Monday morning. Jaron on with you all the way through until 10. The big news overnight, wasn't really overnight, you could have stayed up and watched this, was that Justin Thomas is the new US PGA champion. He beat Will Zalatoris in a 3-hole playoff. Well, it went 3 holes in the end. And Rory McIlroy finished 3 strokes off the winner. He's on 2 under. The two lads are on 5 under into the playoff. Mito Pereira, who led for a good bit of the last 36 hours or so, finished on 4 under. And Seamus Power dropped back to 1 under. So a top 8 finish for Rory McIlroy, top 9 finish for Seamus Power. But really all McIlroy had to do was par his way around after his opening round on Thursday, and he'd be there with the Wanamaker trophy. So that was the crack overnight. Anything from you, Eoin?
No, that's like a very, very unsurprising development that Rory McIlroy was in and around the leaders. If you looked at the round 4 standings, he wasn't the leader in round 4 like he was at the Masters, but he was still pretty close. Justin Thomas was the story on the Sunday, and as a result he was the winner. But that Mito Pereira collapse was absolutely extraordinary and heartbreaking for him, which we'll get to in the performance rankings.
All right, we're going to get to the performance rankings in a second. Here's what's coming up between now and 10. Mark Lawrenson is going to join us at 7:55, so in 25 minutes' time we'll be picking over the carcass of the Liverpool pain. All the Man United fans out there seem very happy today for some reason. We've got a Whoop update with Tommy at 8:30, sports pages at 8:40. Taggy Fogarty is going to talk to us about hurling and the precipitous collapse of Tipperary and Waterford in particular, but also the fact that we're going to get Galway versus Kilkenny and round 2 of the handshakes. That's at 8:50. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 9:10. Don't know if you saw this over the weekend. You might have missed it, but the second best team in Ireland are now Leinster B. We'll put that to him at
Leinster
9:10.
A. Use proper rugby terminology, Jared.
I mean, I'm trying to get I'm trying to explain it for the GAA fans. You know, the training matches.
The junior team.
Well, you know the way always the training matches at Kilkenny training. That's the best and second best team in the country, and then that handily switched over to the Dublin footballers. Now it's actually demonstrably true that if you were to put Leinster B team versus their A team in GAA parlance, it would be the best game in the country. Like no one can tell you otherwise, buddy. Because at the Aviva, Munster had the chance to prove that wrong. Anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later. 7:33. Oh, well, look, we've already managed to troll every fan group apparently.
We?
Accidentally. Owen's not even on screen at the moment. It's time for the performance rankings, but we're going to get to that after we get our competition in. We have a competition for you today. And unfortunately, I don't have my script here on, so you might be able to deliver it for me, would you?
Deliver the scripts for you. The competition this morning at 7:33. We are calling all cycling enthusiasts. Skoda are the official name partner of the Tour de France, and to celebrate on OTB Sports, we have a once-in-a-lifetime giveaway.
Hang on, we actually do need to talk about this once in a lifetime giveaway, right? We're eating into our timer, but this is literally the best competition prize we have ever done, isn't it?
It absolutely
we can
is.
both testify to it. We both did this. This used to be a junket that we were allowed to go on.
Yeah, how come this is a prize for
I
people
don't know.
and not just something that's given to us anymore?
I don't know. It used to be a thing that we would get, and then I think stupidly we said you should give that away to like competition winners. That'd be a great thing to really great thing to do, because it's literally the best thing in all of sport that I've ever done ever.
It's like we do obviously point out the facts that people like Adrian Barry enjoy prawn sandwiches and premium seats and good views. The biggest premium experience I will ever have in life is the 2017 Tour de France, where you're taken around you get to see a stage of the Tour de France in 3 different stages essentially. You get chauffeured to the starting line for that morning stage, then you get driven to a helicopter. A helicopter then flies you over the stage, and then you get off quickly into a jeep where it brings you to the end of the stage so you can see the conclusion of the stage. It's like teleportation, basically. Well, I guess that's the whole point.
If you're lucky enough, the helicopter brings you to the middle of the stage, and then you have some champagne and nice food at the side of the road, and then the leaders pass you by, and if the leaders have a big enough gap to the peloton, you get in a car and you drive behind the leaders, and you're literally in the middle of the race.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So you should enter our competition. It's really easy to enter.
Do you want me to continue?
Go on, you're doing a great job, yeah.
So this amazing prize
10 out of 10.
is a VIP trip to stage 13 of the Tour de France from the 14th to the 16th of July, which includes flights and accommodation for a winner plus a partner. All he needs to do for a chance to win is to be available to travel from the 14th to the 16th of July, and let us know who this famous cyclist is.
Gare, what are you? Are you a complete rookie? What are you talking? That.
Let us know by tweeting @OffTheBall with your answer. And each daily winner will win a €100 One For All voucher and a Skoda cycling jersey, and we'll go into the draw for the grand prize. Best of luck, Skoda drivers, for another chance to win. Check out skodaservice.ie. Jared, back to you. Is this our Eurovision kind of like preparation here?
That's 10 out of 12 points. Right, Man United fans are sick of Liverpool fans thinking that Jurgen Klopp invented football, says John Claffey. Time to find out what we think in the performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom.
Okay, so every Monday morning here in the performance rankings, we go through the bad, the good, the grand. We go through the red, then the amber, then the green. Let's have a look at what's up for grabs today. We've got Waterford, PSG, Manchester City and Leeds. But first up in the red, the very, very red, the scarlet, is the OTB AM team. Because sometimes we get things wrong on this show. Sometimes we just completely drop the ball. We don't have our research done. We don't have our facts right. Last Monday was one of those days. We sat here on Monday last, chatting through life, chatting through sport, thinking that everything was fine, but everything was not fine. People at home would have noticed that something was wrong. Ger Gilroy was not happy whatsoever. Last Monday rather, was a pretty big day, wasn't it, Ger? Look at your face there last Monday, as we forgot.
Kind of sunburned.
Your birthday. But hey, better late than never. 1 week late. Happy birthday, Ger.
Oh my God, you are such a bag of dicks.
We didn't do this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We thought it would be just better to, do it on Monday when we actually found out. You kept us quiet. What age were you last week?
I did. I was 45 last week, Owen. Still 45 this week too.
A big birthday. So happy birthday to you from me and from all the OTB AM team who've picked up the ball and ran with it this week. So that is our first message out of the way this week. That is the only thing we got wrong, of course. Last week we never get things wrong on this show.
It's actually my wedding anniversary today, which I kind of forgot. So.
We should just did a happy birthday again for his wedding anniversary. Congratulations.
Thanks, Owen.
Okay, was there actual sport at the weekend? I think there was. Look at that for an actual list. You've been kicked off the bottom of the performance rankings by Mito Pereira. We'll get to that in just a moment, but let's kick things off with Waterford, to be honest, because I think that's one of the bigger stories, and I think they would actually be the team in 5th place this week as opposed to Mito Pereira, who I kind of feel a little bit sorry for this morning. So Waterford hurlers have been dumped out. It's not the biggest surprise in the world given what happened the previous week against Cork, but it is a massive surprise given what we saw at the end of the league and even what we saw at the start of this year's hurling championship, where themselves and Limerick looked like the two best teams in the country when they went head-to-head in the first round. They've won one game in the round-robin format ever. This, I know it's like we're 3 years into this now, 3 full years, but having won one game in those 3 seasons in this new format in the Munster Championship is just an astonishing development for a team that have come close to, who played in All-Ireland finals, who've come close to being one of the best teams in the country. We thought they were on the crest of a wave last year after an encouraging 2021. Liam Cahill was kept on for another 2 years. He signed a 2-year contract extension, and all of a sudden we get to the end of this year's Munster Championship. And it feels like Liam Cahill could walk out the door. He says he's not going to rush into any decision. As I say, he does have another year in his deal, but he's uncertain as to whether or not he's actually going to hang around. And not only did they lose yesterday, but they got an absolute hockeying, which is one of the most astonishing things about this. And it seems, on some level, like the Munster Championship is just this random thing that can throw up any results. Or maybe actually Clare and Limerick are just the 2 best teams and we need to kind of realise this, and Waterford just aren't on their level. I don't actually know what to think, and I don't know what to put this Waterford disaster down to over the last few weeks, because it does seem very, very strange given the league form, and I know league doesn't matter.
I mean, it's really shocking when you consider that we thought that they were going to be able to catapult forward after the Ballygunner success into the league and then use that as this kind of rolling ball of knives to the championship and be the 2nd best team in the country at least, and potentially have the game to be able to put it right up to Limerick. And even after the first round of championship matches, you thought, okay, that's fine. There's enough there for us to be able to build on. But Jesus, this was like a horrific outcome for them, really, all told. And then aftermath, completely overshadowed by leaking of the team and a suggestion that somebody in the dressing room was, not fully on board, and that type of stuff. It's very, very difficult to come back from. And so I know Liam Cahill's saying now's not the time to make any rash decisions, unless it's just one or two individuals. But it didn't feel that way. It came so far away from where we thought it was so quickly that to be able to get that back on track is the type of thing that feels like you can try, but I've never seen it work. Like you just have never seen it work. You've never seen anybody be able to come in and go, okay, we absolutely lost it last year, but don't worry, we know what we're doing and we can get it back. And I'm not talking about just the management team. It's like the management team and the senior players, and the character of the dressing room needs to be really under the microscope. Like, who are the people in the dressing room? Who are the leaders? And what is it about them that is allowing this to happen year on year on year over the last however long it is now? So, and I think like there's the same goodwill in neutral counties for Waterford as there is for any other Irish sports team. We're desperate for them to win. We really want them to succeed, but it ain't happening.
I wonder as well what some of the kind of storylines we did see over the last few weeks tell us about Waterford. Like, we know obviously that the first week of this year's Munster Championship, Austin Gleeson was left on the bench after he was sent off a couple of games previous to that in the league. Now, this is not any suggestion of Austin Gleeson or anything like that, but I wonder, did Liam Cahill's decision to keep him on the bench that day maybe speak to his need to try and take a tighter grip on that dressing room? Again, I'm not saying that Gleeson was a problem or anything like that, but maybe that just indicated that the manager was trying to do things to try and, as I say, take a tighter grip on things. And I wonder, does that speak to a problem, or am I reading too much into that? Like, the question around Gleeson, like the things that we do know was what we see on the pitch, and Eddie Brennan in the Independent today is making the point that you want to see him back sitting as a sweeper. You want to see him back there. You don't want to see him up in the attack. And that's a question for the management as opposed to Gleeson himself, where he is positioned when it comes to application and things that are happening behind the scenes. We just don't know. Like, the thing is, yesterday, like, Tony Kelly was rested. There was the questions we were asking all week. Can Waterford win this game against Clare? Came down to this question of whether or not Clare would continue their momentum or whether or not they would make a few changes. They made a few changes and they still hockeyed them, which is just absolutely incredible. So I think Clare deserve huge credit on that front as well, because I think when you talk about trying to put the genie back in the bottle with poor seasons, I'm not saying Clare had a season like Waterford have had this year over the past couple of years, but it did feel like Brian Lohan hadn't really had any success to speak of, and we were certainly unsure about how good a manager Brian Lohan was. And now this year, I think you've got to hand a huge amount of credit to Clare who've managed to turn it around.
Yeah, no, Maybe there's a parallel there, and maybe with the early Taggy Fogarty injury and a couple of other injuries as well. But notwithstanding that, this was a team who had momentum, who had a pattern of play, who had a defined way and an identity coming out of the league, and then that blew up in Championship when the pressure came on. And I don't know how important the leaking of the team really is. Big deal was being made of it yesterday. Like, somebody tells somebody something, and then the team is actually as it was. Like, I don't know. Some of that stuff doesn't really matter, and it gets blown up in the aftermath, and the microscope gets more intense. So I think he's like, we were talking about him, somebody had said he's manager of the year material, after the league. And that's the level that his reputation is at. So maybe if they decide that they want to go back, they should be given the opportunity to go back. It's just that might just be a lost year for everybody if they do.
The thing is, I mean, like, are we reacting too much? Like, I mean, we could also have Tipperary in the red here this morning. Let's not forget, after getting dismantled by Cork yesterday, is it an overreaction to just be like, those two teams didn't get out of Munster, therefore they're in the red? I'm not sure it would be, given the magnitude of the defeats they shipped yesterday.
And we keep score for a reason.
Yeah, it does feel that the ejections from Munster this year feel a bit more significant than in previous years. That this is kind of like a little bit of a real sort of ranking on where the power is in Munster, and like, I guess the resurgence from Cork over the last little while. Like, Tipperary are arguably in a worse position than Waterford at this point. Tipperary have to keep training. Tipperary could be out in a relegation playoff in a few weeks' time if Kerry win the Joe McDonagh Cup, which is a little bit embarrassing.
Antrim will look after them, don't worry, it's grand, and they'll still be Kerry with whatever team they put out. Is the gulf in class between those two teams? That's that's the truth.
Like, what's your take on that? Like, should they have to go through a playoff for that?
I mean, I don't know. We keep getting told the hurling championship is great and it works perfectly, but it isn't really great, and it doesn't work perfectly, and like it's not giving us the best teams up against the best teams. There should be, like, if the league is so useless, then we could definitely move to a conference system where you keep your Munster and your Leinster teams, but they all play each other, and they also play the Joe McDonagh team so that they get an opportunity to step up. Like, there's definitely a better system for hurling as they sit and rest on their laurels, laughing at how the football championship is evolving into this dog's dinner that it has become.
For sure. We'll come back to that later on with Taggy Fogarty, who'll be analysing the weekend's hurling. There's just a good heap of stuff to get into before we get to Mark Lawrenson this morning. Just a quick word on Mito Pereira, who's also in the red this morning. One of our commenters is saying Rory McIlroy should be in the red this morning. Fair point. Probably after Thursday, it was a hugely disappointing weekend, and especially going 2 under par yesterday, that would have been a final round that would have been more than good enough had he actually had a better Friday and Saturday, and he could well have been in the mix. Like, you look at that leaderboard and you see Rory McIlroy just lingering behind them, and you think to yourself, he should absolutely be in the mix. But Mito Pereira was in that mix. He was a stroke clear with the ball on the tee at the 18th. Like, this is absolutely incredible what happened. Like, the oh my word from the commentator when he sees the ball in the water is just one of those all-time dramatic moments. It probably won't be remembered all that much, considering it's Mito Pereira and not, Jordan Spieth at Augusta in 2016, but it's still pretty incredible. Like, I saw someone in Sports Illustrated making the point that it's not John van de Velde Carnoustie because of the fact that he actually makes a playoff in the end and bottles it from there. But I don't know, the fact that you're in the lead and then all of a sudden you're not even in the playoff, I think is ripping the plaster off and even more dramatic. And like, I've never made a TikTok reference on this show before, but there was a TikTok doing the rounds a couple of over the last few weeks where a guy like walks out of a mansion carefree, and the caption is saying, "It is what it is," after going through one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. What did Mito Pereira say in his post-round conference yesterday? It is what it is. We have that TikTok on screen, actually. So that is Mito Pereira. After yes, I think that's. I'm not sure. Like, obviously the stories around Justin Thomas and Will Zalatoris and the 3-hole playoff, and Thomas getting a second USPGA title. I think only the 4th golfer under the age of 30 to have got to 2 USPGAs. But for me, the story is an incredible conclusion to Mito Pereira's week.
I thought you were going to break into my money down jiggle there for a second.
No, that is for the next. That is for Amber, Paris Saint-Germain, of course.
Because their money is definitely folding. Look, I think Rory definitely at this stage, it's just, it's a backdoor top 10 again. There was a birdie opportunity around 12 or 13, and it just, he hit the wedge in his hands from 90 yards, having driven it further than everybody else all week, and it was like, okay, well, this is the moment for them, but he couldn't make that, and that was the bit that would have put pressure on everybody else. And then everybody else did come back to him enough where you kind of feel like it was there for him if he was just able to put together a bit of a push, but he left himself too much to do because Friday and Saturday were no good compared to Thursday and Sunday. So
we will probably be copying and pasting this conversation into another major in the future. In amber is Paris Saint-Germain. So Saturday is when a WhatsApp was sent from Kylian Mbappe to Florentino Perez to say, sorry about this, but I'm actually staying in Paris. This is my home city, and I love this club. Also love money, and I love power, and I will be staying here. And it's, I guess, kicked off a whole sequence of different events. The reason why PSG, first of all, are in the amber as opposed to the green is that it is now FC Mbappe at this point, given the demands that he has, I guess, been accepted with. He's obviously got a €100 million a year deal. The money doesn't actually matter. It does feel, or it does seem, looking at some of the reports, that he's going to have a huge say in off-field decisions and appointments in Paris Saint-Germain's hierarchy. So you've got a couple of notable departures happening this season. Pochettino's probably on the way out. Leonardo, the sporting director, is on the way out. Mbappe will be consulted, it seems, on the appointments of these successors. Now, we often have a conversation on this show about how, great players don't necessarily make great managers. I would say that great players are even less likely to make great advisors or, great consultants or football directors. I think that accepting that a player has such a say in this it has the potential for a disaster. And also we've seen that moulding a football club around one player just doesn't work. Like, they could go and win the Champions League next season, and that statement could just seem utterly stupid, but that's just because they have balls of cash, and themselves or Manchester City will more than likely win the Champions League at some point over the next little while. But what this has kicked off is obviously Perez is fuming, but separately to that is the La Liga statement that came out on Saturday was incredible. And this is not La Liga coming out sticking up for one of their clubs. This is Javier Tebas, who has been at odds with Florentino Perez at multiple times over the last couple of years, coming out and questioning the fairness of all of this. He called it, well, the La Liga statement said that this was an attack on the economic stability of European football. The statement said it's scandalous that a club like PSG, which last season reported losses of more than €220 million, with a squad cost of around $650 million for this season, can close such an agreement, while those clubs that could afford the hiring of a player without seeing their wage bill compromised are left without being able to sign him. They said that they're going to file a complaint against PSG before UEFA. But the thing that we do know over the last little while is that PSG have such power in European governing football circles. Like, Al Khelaïfi sits at the top of the ECA, and for this to change it anytime soon doesn't seem likely. So, it does seem initially when you look at that Liga statement, it's like, oh, this is sour grapes because one of the greatest players in the world isn't coming to your league. But I do wonder if there's the nugget of a point there, especially when you consider that La Liga hasn't always been on Perez's side, and they haven't necessarily always been on Real Madrid's side. So what you have next season is Mbappe and Haaland playing for Abu Dhabi and playing for Qatar. And in this Perez versus Al Khelaïfi battle, which is, I guess, indicative of where football is at the moment, Al Khelaïfi has won.
For now, yeah. And look, it's interesting. I do think there's a possibility this works, for Paris Saint-Germain, and by work, I mean they just need to win the Champions League once, and everything then will therefore fall into place. It hadn't been working before with the constant power struggle between Leonardo and whoever the manager was. So Leonardo's gone, Pochettino's gone. Let's see who comes in. If Zidane comes in, then is everything going to just be peaceful? Are they just automatically friends? Does Benzema arrive after the World Cup? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Did you see Benzema's Instagram post the other day?
No.
He put up a photo of Tupac with his friend who betrayed him in the background. So I would suspect that Benzema and Mbappe were chatting about how they were going to dominate La Liga together at Real Madrid, and
maybe
Mbappe
Benzema
betrayed
needs
him.
to follow the whole thing through and go, oh, I can just join you. No?
And everybody lives.
Maybe he can't go back to Paris, I don't know. It's an interesting story. We've only 2 more minutes left to do the last 2 bits, so...
Yeah, Manchester City are in the green. They are Premier League champions once again. Very dramatic, yes. Was it a miracle? Absolutely not, because they're incredibly well resourced. I think Manchester City should be forced to have a 37-year-old at the heart of their defence forever.
Week, yeah.
Forever. It should be the punishment for anybody who comes close to breaking financial fair play rules. Just be forced to play a 37-year-old defender at the heart of your defence and bring the level down a little bit, because Aston Villa kept playing that ball over the top. Manchester City knew they were going to do that thing.
They were pretty
time
good
and time again, and they should have scored 3 goals off it. The Ollie Watkins moment from him being inside his own half, he should have converted that opportunity. They should have been 3-0 up. And
the one where he nearly got a penalty.
Yes, if you're going to pick somebody from the Manchester City team to be the hero, you're probably going to pick Ilkay Gundogan. He is one of the more likeable players in the Premier League. So I'm happy for Gundogan. And you know what? It was a couple of hours of real drama. But let's not get carried away and say this is some sort of fairy tale that has happened in Manchester, because it isn't.
Here's Roy Keane's pitch invasion rant. Have a listen.
Disgraceful, it really is. And I tell you, a player or a manager is going to be seriously injured. If you're mad enough to come on and punch a player, then you're going to be mad enough to do something silly like stab a player. There'll be something crazy happen. I think when COVID happened, people have come back after COVID and forgot how to behave themselves. Idiots, scumbags, disgrace. A player walking off a pitch and getting attacked. We've seen it during the week, obviously, a couple of times at Forest, St Patrick Vieira. The club's absolutely disgraceful.
I mean, he's right? There's definitely rose-tinted view that pitch invasions are cool, and we all would have done them when we were young. We all would have been on pitches after matches thinking this is actually amazing, and it is amazing. But like, you add in the toxic mix of entitlement and cocaine, and all of a sudden, people on the pitch at matches, it's not the sepia-tinted, nostalgic, nice, warm, patting lads on the back and going, well done. It's like far more aggressive and it's grim. Yeah, like it stems from this place of, if you're a sports fan, there seems to be this increasing culture of wanting to make your opponents feel as miserable as possible after their misfortune. And I get that sport is all about basking in the glory of your rivals not succeeding, but it does feel it's kind of just gone over, it like bubbles over to a really distasteful level even before pitch invasions, like just the complete antagonising of opposition players or fans, especially in football grounds. And I think that's probably the manifestation of it in a physical sense, the thing that we've seen over the last little while. Billy Sharp, Patrick Vieira, Robin Olsen, all in the space of 5 days? Yeah, it's mad. Well, I mean, obviously the pitch invasions are only going to happen at the end of the season, but the ramping up and the amping up of it, where the attacks have got as much as they have, as quickly as they have, is kind of ridiculous. Leeds are in the green as well, right? But why don't we just save our Leeds in the green chat for football, which is coming up in just a second. So it's 7:56. That's this week's performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
All right, Mark Lawrenson is with us. Mark, we might actually start with Leeds because we've just skipped over them there, but what an achievement to get out of it. And Rafinha with the fans celebrating is the best aspect of players and fans' connection in the immediate aftermath. How did they manage to get out of the trouble they were in over the last few weeks? What is it about them?
Resilience, I suppose. And they are kind of bloody minded. I mean, in the previous games, they were playing angry, and you saw that in terms of getting players sent off. And in fairness to the manager, I struggle a bit to listen to him because it's sometimes like, really? But he's done a very, very good job. Look, without the best players as well, and conceding loads of goals this season, it's one of those where you're just happy to get out of it. And, you know, they've done it. That's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter how, but they've done it, and obviously can start again next season.
There's been a few teams in recent seasons who have used their last day escape to become mid-table or, you know, safe from relegation earlier in the season. Villa were one of them, for example. And you would think if they can keep Calvin Phillips for one more year, and if Bamford comes back, then all of a sudden they're just a completely different team from the start next year.
Yeah, isn't there? And I think it's more than talk that they're going to be bought out.
Yes, the 49ers have been investing in them slowly over the last couple of years, and
right.
I mean, they're not owners who have loads of money to invest. They are billionaires on the basis of the fact that they own an American football team. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they will obviously invest though. I mean, the team will be invested in, as in getting new players, because you know the big tranche of Premier League money that now comes in. They might want to get rid of one of the players, maybe 50, 60 million and you know, 2 or 3 players in, stuff like that. But I don't see them having a problem next season. And also, by the way, when you look at the teams that are going to come up, straight away, they've not even played a game, but you're thinking, really? Bournemouth, Fulham, Forest might make it, obviously. But, I mean, Forest's 3 best players, arguably, are the 3 lone players. So, I think it might even be easier next year to stay in the league if you're a Leeds or an Everton or one of those teams.
When you said there a moment ago you struggled to listen to the manager, what do you mean by that?
I just think he's full of SH1T at times. It's like, you know, he's talking stuff. Quoting Kipling to players doesn't work. Rudyard Kipling. It was probably Mr. Kipling would have been better, but it's just, I don't get all that, you know. And it's like. I remember when I was at Brighton and we used to have the poem "If," and occasionally Alan Mullery, who was a manager, would obviously point to it. Says you look, it's there in the dressing room all the time. You forgot to, you know, read this before you go out and all that kind of stuff. And the players ended up throwing mud at it and all that kind of stuff. So I think with players, the least amount of information you give them, the better. They don't understand all these quotes and stuff, do they?
Some of them might do, but might be an exception.
Well, there won't. I'll tell you now, there won't be many. There will not be many, and they won't even know who Kicklin is. Seriously, no chance.
You need to go in and change that, Mark. The debate then just on the other side of that very quickly before we move on to the title race in Manchester City.
Yeah.
It's just Burnley and the job that Mike Jackson did in the aftermath of the Sean Dyche sacking. It did seem yesterday a lot of people pushed the button on that's what you get for sacking Sean Dyche, and you deserve everything you got, Burnley. Where do you sit on that conversation?
Well, Sean Dyche did a really, really good job, but he probably just outstayed his welcome, in all honesty. And it probably, it was time for him to walk away. My problem about all that is this guy who owns them, doesn't he now have to pay 60 million quid because of the way he borrowed the money to buy the football club, which straight away is a worry. So there's going to be a fire sale. But I think I know Mike Jackson because he was at Preston for a while. Played under David Moyes, and he's done a really good job because I think he gave them a little bit of freedom. It was almost right. You know what? Whatever's happened, let's just go out and play. And he immediately played with a little bit of width. We know they've got 2/3 big centre forwards who thrive on the crosses from either side, and he got an immediate far better results is a word I'm looking for. But there was always then a case where you think, well, how long will it last? And unfortunately, it probably didn't last quite long enough. But I don't think he'll get the job, will he? I mean, everybody will be sending the CVs in as we speak. So, which is a pity for him. But you can imagine that's the way the world is, isn't it? And the Championship, as I know, is dog eat dog. By the way.
It'll be very interesting to see how well they do down there. The parachute payment might look after the 60 million immediate, but they're not going to be able to spend it on players. It's going to be. I don't think
it will look after. I think the way that he's borrowed this money, I think, is a real worry for the supporters. But they've got players that they can sell, obviously, and some will want to go anyway. But.
Nathan Collins is one that has already, from an Irish perspective, been linked away. Did he do enough over the year to say, yeah, here's a Premier League centre back in the making?
Possibly. I wouldn't put him like, if you split the Premier League into 3 divisions, he would be in the 3rd division as yet. But yeah, possibly. I mean, he's got good habits, and he will have good habits under Sean Dyche in terms of defensively. So. He's got a chance, but I mean, Tchaikovsky's it. I think he'll go. McNeil will probably look to go. The guy they signed from France is Cornet.
Yeah,
they won't be hanging around, will they? They're not going to do a season in the Championship, and straight away you're dismantling the team, and unless you've got fantastic recruitment, thinking that you were going down, but you've looked at quite a few of the teams in the Championship who you can pinch some of their players, I think it's going to be a struggle for them.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what happened in the game between Manchester City and Aston Villa. I'm an Aston Villa fan, so at no stage, even when it was 2-0, did I think, well, that's over, I can put the feet up here. I've seen this movie a lot, particularly against the good teams, where Villa miss a host of chances. It could have been 4. At 4-0, I would have been, oh, this is interesting. I maybe have a little bit of faith that they might be able to see this through. But what did you make of it?
Well, I mean, it was just fantastic television. That's the first thing, wasn't it? And also yesterday, I mean, on Sky, you could watch all the goals going. I was doing the Liverpool game, so I wasn't party to that, but everyone was telling me it was just brilliant. So, should have been 3-0, most definitely. 3-0, I think City would have struggled to come back. And obviously, the irony as well would be that, Gundogan coming on and scoring twice. Well, he used to play for Klopp, didn't he? So I bet that went down well. But listen, City can do this. The big teams tend to do this on regular occasions. I mean, you look at Madrid against City. In other games that we've seen that with Liverpool as well. But I just think with teams like Aston Villa is, even though you were 2-0 up, I don't really think amongst that team that they really believed that they were going to at least draw the game. Never mind even win it, because you're almost, as a player, you're waiting for the onslaught to happen. And once the first goal went in, it just triggered everything else.
They did fall really quickly, like a house of cards after that.
Yeah. Well, it was like the inevitable, isn't it? Because you go to the game and you're thinking, crikey, we might get absolutely punnelled here today. We might get a 5 and start really well and score. And it's almost like you can't believe how well you're doing. And I think, with the lower teams against really top teams, it's then a case of, well, when's the hurricane coming? It must come at any kind of time. And then you only need one or two thinking, oh, it's here, and you're all over the place. Just the way that City just swarmed all over them, didn't they, in all honesty.
Is that because that's always the case where the top teams in any championship winning side, if you think back to Ferguson's Manchester United, they were capable of doing this as well. Is that inevitable, or should all the teams in the Premier League now be able to batten down the hatches at 2-0 up, given the money and resources that they have?
Well, this should be more competitive from that point of view. But the problem is that, players just lose concentration. And not only that, when you play against the Liverpools and the Manchester Cities of this world, they work you so hard. They're super fit. They make, the ball always travels quicker than a man can. So the passing's really, it zips into players. And it's really, really difficult. By the time you get to about 70, 75 minutes, you're like, wow, hold on, how long left is there that we need to hold out for? So it's more of a case that's why Premier League teams the good ones score so many late goals, is because the opposition, mentally and physically, are whacked.
Where do you stand on what Manchester City can improve on next season? Like, it did feel that if you take yesterday in isolation, there was obviously a bit of a glaring weakness at the heart of their defence, but you'd assume if Diaz and Laporte are fit for a full season, if they got their full-backs fit for a full season, it's an incredible defence, an incredible goalkeeper, and no problems there. But at the same time, they did still have to make do with Fernandinho at the centre of their defence yesterday. So does that suggest that there's a potential weakness starting to emerge there if we look ahead to the next season?
Well, you missed Stones out as well, haven't you? So you've got to throw Stones in. So no, I don't see it. And the thing about playing against Manchester City is they probably, on a regular basis, have 70% of the ball, in the game. So what you're saying to the opposition is that the 30% time and chances that you have, get on with it, because you're not going to have much of the ball to actually score goals against them. So no, I don't see that as being an issue. Haaland is just, I think he's a really good signing. He's an interesting signing, but it'll be interesting to see who needs to adapt, whether it's he to the team or the team to him. We've seen that a bit with Grealish as well this year, haven't we? He's done okay, probably 6 out of 10, you would say. If you see Haaland's goals, a lot of them are when he's running onto green grass towards the goalkeeper, etc. And City play, lovely little passes, intricate passes, etc. And I'm not saying he can't play that way, but I think with him a little bit is get it into areas early for him. But that's not really the way that City plays, so it's going to be really, really interesting. But of course, if he catches fire, well, good night, Lucy, to everybody else.
David Moyes, obviously, in the Conference League, very disappointed with the way the season ended, because it looked like they might be in the Champions League, and then it looked like they were going to be in the Europa League, and finally there will be European football next season, but it's not what he wanted.
No, well, as you know, I know him, and he's been saying for a few weeks, they're absolutely late. They were just so leggy. And although he did change the team quite regularly in Europe, I mean, there's so many players played so many games, and he just said just didn't quite have enough, not just enough players, but just that extra 2 or 3 quality players, which I think he'll get in the summer. So still a good achievement, obviously, and they've pushed everybody in that league, and they're very, very difficult to play against. And with a few additions, that they will be better. But now they ran out of steam, basically.
And will Declan Rice be there next season, do you think?
I would have thought so. I would have thought he'd probably do another year. But you just never know. But it's going to be an awful lot of money for everyone who wants to buy him. And I think has he got 2 years left, or even 3?
Yeah, 2 + 1, I think. Yeah,
2 + 1. So yeah, I would think so. And he doesn't seem the type of boy who's going to knock on the door and say, "Right, I've done my bit for you. I want to clear off." But then, of course, and I mean, if somebody comes in and says, "Well, we'll give you 100 million for him," you might be tempted to take it.
Just on Liverpool, obviously they held up there, ended up bargain, and would have probably gone down as an epic comeback themselves had Manchester City been held by Aston Villa. One of the interesting storylines, obviously, from yesterday is it looks like Thiago is going to be a massive doubt for the Champions League final. It looks like Klopp has basically said that he's going to miss the game this Saturday. Yeah. Just on that, Mark, just how significant a loss is that in the context of that Real Madrid game?
Well, what about the goal he created? There's nobody apart from De Bruyne in the Premier League would even think about trying to pull that one off. And he sets the tempo for them. His passing's not just great; it's just he hits the ball into you really quickly. And if you're a decent player, it's much easier to control when it comes in quickly. But and he's very much the heartbeat and creativity. And I think Fabinho's probably struggling as well, because up until yesterday, I don't think he'd been on the training ground. So he's another one which is a worry for them, because Keita's okay. Obviously Henderson will be in there, but then you might have to chuck somebody else in as well. Which
Milner going to start?
Who? Milner?
Is he potentially going to start the Champions League final?
I don't think so. Although you never know with Klopp, but I mean, he trusts him. So maybe that's what he wants when he looks at the other players and thinks, well, let's just be really solid in midfield and be difficult to play against, and let the front three do their bit against sometimes a weakened Real Madrid side. But I'm not sure. You can't. I don't really know anyone else that is going to play. In all honesty, I won't think you put any of the kids in. They've disappointed in a little. Not disappointed, but they haven't really kicked on. As he thought they would. So yeah, maybe Milner will start. You know what you get from him. So I mean, he's an up and downer, and he works extremely hard. He's experienced, but we're talking about trying to create goals chances to beat Real Madrid in a final. Yeah,
plenty for him to think about over the course of the week. Mark, you've been great. Thanks a million.
No problem. Thank you.
It's Mark Lawrenson giving us his thoughts there on the situation. Like we did talk about the injuries this week and the unlikelihood of them being able to pull back Manchester City. I don't know. You're a neutral. What did you think when it was 2-0?
Well, I thought Manchester City are screwed, because I actually thought that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Obviously I was wrong, as I'm wrong about a lot of things. I thought they were screwed in a way that I thought that they were being opened up by Aston Villa. That I thought that the more this game goes on,
it should continue to happen.
Yeah, that Villa could catch them on the break. The thing is that they, it was the second goal really. Once they equalised, then he knew it was the third was going to come at any point. If there had been a bit of a gap between the first and then Villa had put in a titanic effort, and then all of a sudden Manchester City limped over to get a second, Villa would be like, okay, just one more effort. And, whatever it might have been, 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll get there. Then they might have been able to do it. But I just think it was just the quick fire nature of the first two goals. You thought, okay, well, the third is coming now.
As soon as the first one went in, I was like,
you knew, you've been familiar. But does yesterday not prove the point that Liverpool were right to not give in on
I don't know. I don't know, because I think that it was inevitable, irrespective of I think that there's a case if it had gone 3-0 that it still would have been 4-3. I do it depends on what time it's scored, but even then, I don't know. It does feel like I've seen the Villa film before. That for all of you out there wondering what it's like to support Aston Villa, that's it. Moments of absolute brilliance, and then this terror that, oh no, we've scored too soon. You know the way it's like the statisticians and the nerds always give out about people who say the 2-0 lead in football is the most dangerous lead, because it's not. Statistically they are correct. It is obviously not. But if you are an underdog and you go 2-0 up against a good team, it is the most dangerous lead in football, because it's so close to being exciting. You're just getting excited, and we're going to do this. And then I'd say maybe 1 in 100 times Villa managed to see off a United or a Liverpool or a City as it is now. Villa were 2-0 up one time against Inter in the UEFA Cup when Tony Cascarino was playing, and he missed an absolute sitter, and that is the history. It's like Mayo kicking wides. That's what it is. It's like,
sounds like
this is our culture.
Yeah, it sounds like you really wanted Liverpool to do it yesterday. Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure. Like we go through like all the different storylines yesterday. Like there were three different stories yesterday. At the top, Liverpool showed frailty. Manchester City showed frailty. At the bottom, Burnley obviously showed frailty. Leeds stuttered a little bit as well. And in the top 4 race, Tottenham showed absolutely no nerves whatsoever. That on the final day of the season, the only team that were nerveless and steely was Tottenham Hotspur.
That's interesting, isn't it? What's coming next season?
That's the Conte bounce.
It's a hurricane. If he stays...
Who's finishing third next season?
Does Kylian Mbappe get Antonio Conte? And then you're like, Kylian Mbappe is an absolute genius. He got Antonio Conte. If Antonio Conte is looking at the deal that has just been done for Kylian Mbappe, and he's gone, so you gave him 150 million signing on fee, but if I am the manager who delivers the Holy Grail for you, I want 100 million bonus.
Well, who would you rather be your boss? Daniel Levy or Kylian Mbappe?
I'd say Kylian Mbappe is more crack. I'd say a night out with Kylian Mbappe is better than a night out. You're getting the tasting menu and you're getting the wine pairing with Daniel Levy, but with Kylian Mbappe, you're getting the whole city. There's like a significant difference.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Right. 8:16 this morning. Give us your thoughts. The YouTube comments are aflame. You can also tweet us at Off The Ball AM, and we pick up your comments there. Use the hashtag OTB AM if you're too lazy to type out the full name. It even autofills for you these days, though, so there's no real excuse. Calling all cycling enthusiasts, Skoda are the official main partner of the Tour de France, and to celebrate on OTB Sports, we have a once-in-a-lifetime giveaway. This amazing prize is a VIP trip to stage 13 of the Tour de France from the 14th to the 16th of July, including flights and accommodation for one winner plus a partner. All you need to do for a chance to win is to be available to travel from the 14th to the 16th of July and to let us know who this famous cyclist is.
Gare, what are you? Are you a complete rookie? What are you?
Let us know by tweeting at Off The Ball with your answer. Each daily winner will also win a €100 One For All voucher and a Skoda cycling jersey, so you can pretend to be Sam Bennett on the streets of Ireland, and you'll go into the draw for the grand prize. Best of luck, Skoda drivers. For another chance to win, check out skodaservice.ie. Now, after the ad break, you're going to hear from Brian Kerr, who was alongside Stephen Doyle on commentary for OTB Sports on the City game, speaking about City's title and Mo Salah's season in the aftermath of yesterday's final day Premier League madness. Back after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Marginal gains, XG, top speed, recovery. What's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
Paddy, I go, what? He goes, Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GEA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Liverpool proved this year that they've got a squad to match Manchester City's. Manchester City's squad was found out a couple of times. You saw that last week when they were at West Ham when they drew, when the defence looked a bit weak. They looked weak on the right-hand side defence. Fernandino today in the first half didn't so well. They don't trust Ake, a £40 million player. So, maybe their squad isn't as deep as we've always thought. But, they signed Haaland. I'm sure they'll sign more players this year. Liverpool have made some very, very good signings. They're also pulling players through the academy, the likes of Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, brilliant during the week. And, Manchester City have those players as well, but they've not brought as many through as Liverpool have. They've not played as many. I mean, we look at Foden, he's such an exceptional player, brilliant player, but both of them we expect to strengthen again this year.
Cancelo has been outstanding. I'm looking at the back, Emerick Laporte. He overcame some problems last season to put in a really good season. John Stones, Ruben Diaz made their contributions.
Diaz has been an important player. I think the other one who's exceptionally important is Edison, both for his distribution and on his saves. Didn't have too many saves to make today, and he was beaten for 2 goals. But his distribution and starting play from the back, no matter what way teams set up against him, he'd pick out players in advanced positions. Near him is easier, but further up the pitch, he can ping the ball into the front man. I think De Bruyne is a key man. I think he's player of the year in the league this year. The soccer writers, I think, went for Salah. 2 brilliant players.
Who would you went for?
I think I might have went for Salah, but I don't have a vote in it. I think Salah, for his consistency, the number of goals he scored, the fact that he's always fit, he plays every game. He's not one that gets rotated, although he was left out today, funnily enough. But I admire De Bruyne so much because he's playing in that central area in the pitch. They're two brilliant players.
He's also the top scorer for City as well this season.
But I think he's you said, is he the key man? I think he is.
All right, it's Brian Kerr. Not quite deciding on who his player of the year was. We can go back and look at all of our predictions. I think everybody predicted that Man City were going to win, except me. I predicted Liverpool were going to win.
No, I'll hold my hands up and say I got it badly wrong. I predicted Chelsea.
All right.
Yeah, and they had obviously a terrible season. I just thought after the Champions League final last season that they were ready to go and dominate English football, that Lukaku was going to bang in 30 goals.
Mo Salah really needed to come off the bench yesterday to score as well, because Heung-min Son scored twice, and that meant that they both finished on top of the goal scorer charts. I don't know. I'd love to. I wish Football League was just a little bit better and gave us all the contracts and all the details to see how much extra they get for finishing top of the Golden Boot.
Also, Heung-min Son should just be awarded the Golden Boot and give it to him, because they should tie-break it on non-penalty goals.
It's not a bad shout.
And just let's just be done with this.
Penalties do count, though.
They do. They're easier to score, though. Heung-min Son actually has just been this incredible anomaly, I want to say, over the last few years. Maybe not an anomaly, but just in isolation, he's been incredible. His conversion rate compared to his expected goals is off the charts. It always has been. It's something that's like, even in his early days, like mystified fantasy football managers.
He's kind of an outlier.
It's like he has to come back. He has to regress to the mean or to the expected goal a little bit more than he's doing at the moment, and that's just continued for years and years and years.
Here's a completely separate point to the rest of the weekend, but Derek Larkin was in touch around 7 o'clock this morning to say, granted Tiger is going to win that social media bonus payment on the PGA Tour again, but isn't Phil more or less guaranteeing himself second with all his antics? Be fun when they have to send him that check. It's an excellent unconsidered point in all this. It's like there's literally no metric in the world where Phil Mickelson is not the most spoken about golfer over the last year. You've got to give him all the money.
I think that there's an argument to be made that he is a more impressive PIP golfer than Tiger Woods in 2022 so far.
I mean, Tiger's comeback was like this kind of desperation to try and wrestle the narrative back, but like by not playing in the tournament last weekend, everyone was talking, Phil Mickelson's not. What's going on?
Like Tiger Woods.
Maybe Greg Norman has to get a little bit of a too, does he?
Maybe John Daly might have golf carted his way to a place, and like the average age of the PI, like the golf came up with a concept to reward social media exposure, something for the kids on TikTok and Instagram to gain money from. The top 3 PIP golfers in the world: Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson and John Daly, with an average age of about 64. That is what's going to happen here. It does pale in comparison. It's a great story, people marvelling at Tiger Woods being able to walk around the golf course on day 3, but it's nothing compared to Phil Mickelson referring to the Saudis as scary MFers. Like, that's something we probably didn't expect to see at the start of this golf season.
No, but then I'm still going to do business with him anyway.
Yeah,
it's very revealing.
Jack Bauer-esque.
Andrew Garrity says, morning lads, very strange year. There was no Premier League season. I'm a Manchester United fan. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was like even the end of the season. So bear in mind that they were up against Crystal Palace, who had experienced the pitch invasion, had their manager kick the hole off some Everton fan live on TV. And then they still come and produce a performance where they're like, no, we're still better than you, Man United. On the last day of the season, you know, when some of you are desperately trying to win a contract, the new manager's here to watch you, and you are still absolutely grimly rubbish.
Got to a goal difference of a nice round 0 as well as a result of a 1-0 defeat.
What are the Man United fans feeling at the moment? Is there like Ten Hag's press conferences today, is it? So there's some hope, there's some sense of like, we're going to be able to, you know, he's going to come in and be charismatic. Is he going to win the press conference? In the NFL in recent seasons, this has been very important, that opening press conference. There was definitely rumours that the 49ers interim coach one year, who he was interim, he didn't know at the time, but he was definitely interim, he was only there for a year. He farted in the first 10 minutes of his press conference. And that kind of metaphorically, that smell hung around over the whole year, and he didn't come back. But if you get this wrong, you know, stuff can happen in the first. All of a sudden, every single utterance is a referendum on whether or not this is the right decision.
Yeah, well, yeah. The thing that would maybe slightly concern me about yesterday is Ralph Rangnick saying, out of our starting 11, there will be 10, apart from Edinson Cavani, who will be playing for this club next season. So we go through the 10 players yesterday. Fred and McTominay midfield. De Gea in goal, Maguire, Lindelof at the heart of your defence, Dallo and Tella as your full-backs, and Fernandez, Elanga and Hannibal behind Edinson Cavani. Of course, McFred is not going to be your starting midfield next season, Manchester United fans, is it? They will be mere squad players.
No, Donny van de Beek scored yesterday to remind everybody, I'm still here, pick me, I'm still here. Eric, I mean, we had all that great time together.
Yeah, that's going to be the transformative moment for Ten Hag and Manchester United as this kind of off-season does what all off-seasons do, which is make us forget about the ills of the past. This beautiful sense of amnesia will set in over the next little while as United fans will think, maybe.
MOC says, having spending power is one thing, spending it correctly is another. Manchester United wastes so much money, it's shameful, really. I mean, that's the whole point. They've wasted so much money. They've absolutely blown through all of the money that they had. But they're still creating loads of money. They're still generating massive amounts of revenue. And if they had the right manager, you'd be able to turn that around pretty quickly. Maybe not in one season, but there's no reason why in 2 years you should not be competing for the big cups.
100%. They absolutely have.
And they're in the Europa League next season. So like there's two very doable gateways to Champions League football the following season.
Yeah, like the Europa League obviously gave a bit of heartache, and if you, like Gary Neville seemed to think that the defeat to Villarreal at the end of last season was a really bad moment in the journey of this team. It kind of almost precipitated a bit of a downfall.
I mean, like very fragile then, really, and cup wins have in the past been used by that club to secure and rubber stamp better things, but like I don't know how crap would it be. Bobby Haight says Liverpool penalty cup champions 2022. MOC back in touch saying only one league title for Liverpool in 32 years, not good enough really. I mean it's I don't know, I think Liverpool fans feel alive. That fear though, no midfield. Your midfield's going to be Henderson, Milner, and one of the kids.
Yeah, but like
Naby Keita.
For the greatest Liverpool team of all time, any season where you don't win the Premier League or the Champions League is a disappointing season, or is a disappointing outcome, not a disappointing season. So, like if they lose on Saturday, it will be a disappointing outcome for what was a great season. And then there's obviously no guarantee that anybody other than Manchester City are going to be favourites for that Premier League title next season. We said the same thing at the start of this year. Like we go through our Premier League predictions at the start of this year, and I don't think anybody predicted Liverpool to win it. Although they would have been wrong if they did.
Can I just ask why are Man United fans so happy that Man City won the league? Why are they so happy that Liverpool? Because when the goals were going in, the first goal went in yesterday. Like I expected full kind of Gary Neville stuff in the commentary box, but it was the opposite. It was devastation. He was like, there was grunts and groans, as opposed to the league title's back. It's in the mix again, which is kind of very unexpected.
Because of the treble. Like Manchester United fans cling to 99 as the reason why that team is better than this team. This Liverpool team, I should say.
Okay, so it was literally self-protection from being involved, like the 1972 Dolphins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's my read on it.
But that's him. But all the other Man United fans...
Yeah, no, I think they're the same. I think the Manchester United fans are the same as Gary Neville.
Right. It's just the treble.
I think so.
So they would prefer.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
But like that's like ignoring the fact that Manchester City are this beast that are never going to be tamed. Well, Man City are here forever now.
But that's the acceptance. I don't think them losing yesterday would have tamed the beast in any way. The beast you've got to
try
shackled for a long time.
You've got to try and somehow fight it back at every available opportunity. Like, you know, Liverpool's greatness at the moment is inextricably linked with Jurgen Klopp. Manchester City's greatness is inextricably linked with the fact that they have endless amounts of money. They're literally taking the money out of the ground on a daily basis at a rate at which they cannot spend it, and they're spending it all around the world to try and, you know, I don't know why, but for all the reasons that we think they're doing it. But they can't be stopped. You cannot stop Manchester City and their money. You can stop Liverpool. That's gonna fade at some point. When Jurgen Klopp gets tired and burnt out, the next manager comes along has to be as genius as Jurgen Klopp. They spend hardly any money, really, on balance. Yeah. Whereas Manchester City have an endless pot of cash. So you don't want City to be winning these leagues.
No, but the thing is, another reason that Manchester United fans would be happy is that Manchester City, was that their 8th top tier title? Liverpool are on 19. So they would have gone level with Manchester United yesterday. This is what you're thinking. You're not thinking about, you know...
In 10 years' time, it'll be 18.
Yeah.
They'll win 9 of the next 10 or 10 of the next
20.
10. But they're going to get there.
Yeah.
You have to stop them. The Liverpool thing is a rivalry. That's fine. You will... Their cycle and your cycle will come on and come off and come on and come off and come on and come off. That's the long form of history. But what's not the long form of history is a gajillionaire. We don't have the number of money that they have.
I wonder will Manchester United actually just like become world leaders in the fight against global warming and the use of crude oil, and their stadium will be heated with electricity. And it's like, let's actually kill this at source.
Yeah.
Let's cut off the Middle Eastern money, and this is how we actually wrestle control back. A more sustainable game for football might actually literally be a more sustainable game for football.
The only way that that can stop is if we all stop using oil.
Manchester United fans, you know what to do. Liverpool fans do.
8:32 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Time to move on to something entirely different. Team OTB are taking on Triathlon this June. It's very, very soon. It's all in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. We're joined on the line now for a special update with Tommy Rooney. Tommy, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. Hi, Eoin.
Oh, you sound a little bit down in the dumps there, Tommy.
Yeah, it's very close. Very, very close. I was on here recently and I was saying, do you know what? It's great. Even if somebody doesn't want to do the full triathlon, let them at it. And I realised last week that I am absolutely goosed.
You're doing the full thing, are you?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you mean goosed? What's the worst element of all of this?
Well, I tried to swim 750 metres during the week.
It's 250, Tommy.
Oh, it's only 200... Oh, that's not bad.
Welcome to some breaking news here, Tommy. This is
250.
You're all shambles. Adrian Barry somehow managed to like weasel out of this by it's too long for me, and then it was like it's only 250 metres, and you're bobbing downstream like a cork, and you're like, I couldn't swim the 750.
Sure?
Yes, Tommy.
It's a sprint distance.
Yes, no, it's the Sunday morning beginners, the triathlon at Tri. We are trying and failing. It turns out.
Okay, well that's not too bad because it took me 55 minutes to get 40 odd lengths done. So, okay, that's not too bad.
Where were you doing this?
Doing it in a pool. I didn't go into the river yet. So, yeah, okay, that's not too bad. How's your swimming going?
Swimming, I have made the fatal error of I'm in a tiny little swimming pool. It's like 11 or 12 meters, and I keep kind of using the ends to push off. Obviously, when you're doing it real, you have none. I mentioned this to my sister at the weekend. She's like, you're supposed to swim around so you don't get the benefit. Because it's like having a little motor. It's basically like, famous cycling teams of the past that had illegal motors in the back of their thing. Yeah. Where you get to push off every 10 meters. It's like a little, That
replicates a downstream, though.
Maybe. That's the way to do it.
That's fair on. You're doing the swim, aren't you? Are you doing the cycle?
I'm doing the whole thing, Tommy.
Oh, fantastic.
I see you're very up to date on how this whole thing is going to work out.
Oh, I thought there was like a mini group there that wasn't doing it at all. They're doing like a piece each.
Oh, there is a little mini group that's doing that, and their names are Adrian Barry, Nathan Murphy and Brian O'Driscoll. And Brian O'Driscoll did say it was the worst team he's ever been on since the community games where he had to or a tennis tournament that he played with somebody who couldn't hit the ball one time.
Are you confident on the bike?
Pretty confident on the bike. Yeah, I mean, I did 2 cycles at the weekend. Didn't get as far as I needed to, but I'll be okay.
I'm hopping on the bike. I'm hopping on the bike after this and trying to go for a run off the back of it. That's the key, really. It's getting used to running off the back of cycling. That's the tricky part.
It's very hard. It's very, very hard. It's more of a waddle to.
Yes.
You think that they're fairly similar. It's actually swimming and cycling are fairly similar. You should be able to merge relatively seamlessly like an amphibious vehicle. Do
you have the amphibious suit, actually?
The Viking Splash Tour.
That's back as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right, great. I thought it was gone forever.
So did I. It's great. We'll hear screams on our streets again.
Yeah.
Have I got the amphibious suit? No, I need to go shopping this week.
Nice. So,
Tommy, you're worried, but less worried now that I've talked you through it. And also,
I really thought I wasn't bothered with that swim because I'm quite. Do you know what I realised? And it happened before the pandemic when we were swimming before in Trinity and we were training. I just swim like a log lock. I'm not able to move my body like a fish the way you're supposed to, and glide through the water. I go straight, and I'm just fighting against myself. And I was worrying about that. I thought it'd be 750 metres, and whoever was doing the swim for the other team, Adrian, whoever it was, would beat me, and I wouldn't be able to get it back. I wouldn't be able to catch up on Sheahan. That was my worry.
I don't think you're going to be able to catch up on Sheahan anyway.
Neither do I.
He's younger than you, and he's fitter than you, and he's more explosive athlete at this point.
Is he younger than Tommy?
Yeah.
Very close.
He's got about 8 months, I think. That makes a difference.
Tommy started to go to 30th birthday parties. Yeah. He's in that cycle now. It used to be communions and confirmations, and now it's 30th and baby showers.
And it was the 30th that was a dinner, so makes it even worse.
You sound like a man who might have been at a 30th birthday party over the weekend.
You do.
Yeah.
Got
I was recording the football pod last night until we realised that the qualifier draws was this morning, so we recorded 85% of the football pod last night. And James O'Donoghue is hopping on a flight in about 35 minutes, so we're going to record part 2 in about 10 minutes' time.
All right. Well,
any word yet on that draw?
No? We're going to get it now with Cathal. How are your various Whoop metrics going, Tommy?
Yeah, well, I hopped into the pool there, Jared, the other day for the first time in a while, and as I said, I got through that swim, but it took me quite a while to get through it. And my Whoop told me afterwards that I could have been doing a bit more work, or maybe that's just kind of what happens when you're in the pool. My strain was 7.6,
right?
Even though I was in there from 8:30 to 9:15. 15 minutes at 70% of your max heart rate. So, obviously it's good for recovery. I did that in between a bit of training last week with football and a match, so it's good for recovery.
How are you playing? Are you scoring?
No, not really. We'll come back to that in about 8 weeks, so we'll see what happens there.
On the down low, Tommy. Next season, Clare's full forward or bust. That's it. Right.
What's your training plan this week? Are you on the bike? Are you swimming? What are you at?
Yeah, I am.
Doing everything?
Yeah. I have to do it this week or never. It's this week or never.
Are you trying all 3?
I'm doing all 3.
Are you not tapering this week?
No, are you trying all 3 back to back? Are you going?
Oh, never. No, on the day. On the day. Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thanks, Tommy. You too.
Bye.
Am I tapering this week? No, but I will be tapering next weekend.
Nice. How are you tapering next weekend? Just by going out in the lash?
I'm going to the Champions League final.
Oh yeah, of course. Have you got a ticket?
I got sorted.
Oh, look at that! Look at that smug face.
Right. Sorry, it's disgusting. Team OTB are taking on Triathlon this June, and some of us are very well prepared for it, as you've seen. It's all in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. They have this great thing where you can keep a diary of what you've been doing, and over a period of time you can look back and see there are some improvements there, or in some instances no improvements. So it's up to you.
First ties are coming out of the pot. Mayo at home against Monaghan.
Oh, nice one. Yes.
So these two worlds that existed in this in this draw have already collided. I had like the four big ones: Mayo, Monaghan, Tyrone, Armagh, as the four, and they could possibly all have avoided each other. That's not going to happen. So one of Mayo or Monaghan's season is going to be over after the first round of qualifiers. So that's a big draw. That's the first one out.
It's 8:39. Carl Mullaney is with us. Carl, good morning to you. You're also keeping an eye on this.
Yeah, I am indeed. That's quite a tie, isn't it?
Yeah, Clare Meath is the second team out of the hat this morning. Second draw out of the hat.
Oh, who does Tommy cheer for?
Who does Tommy? We should get Tommy back on the line quick. The Tommy Rooney derby in Clare.
Uh-oh.
Armagh versus Tyrone. Oh, so that what a draw this is. So we've got the most heavyweight possible qualifier draw is exactly what we've got. Those four teams will become two. Armagh at home to Tyrone, Mayo at home to Monaghan, which of course leaves Westmeath versus
Louth.
Limerick.
Louth. Isn't it?
This are in the Tailteann Cup, aren't they?
Go on. Yeah.
So
it is Cork versus Louth. Sorry.
Cork versus Louth.
Cork versus Louth. Yeah, Westmeath and Tailteann Cup.
This draw isn't made versus the beaten finalists.
No, that's the beaten finalists have yet to be beaten. Yeah. So
I know they've yet to be beaten, but as in we don't we don't know.
We don't know what that'll be another draw.
Okay, it'd be good if that draw was made now, so you'd know in advance.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, then maybe
unless they are doing it now, but it hasn't been done yet. So the full draw is Mayo.
Maybe rest players. Go on, start again. So yeah, this is all we played next weekend.
Weekends of 4th and 5th of June.
Yeah.
We've 2 weeks of build up for this.
Yeah.
Including a roadshow in Monaghan. No.
In Mayo. Before the Monaghan game. Mayo at home to Monaghan. Clare at home to Meath. Cork at home to Louth. Armagh at home to Tyrone. That's an absolute stonker of a qualifier draw to use.
Brilliant.
I'm picking them now.
Phrase.
I'm picking Mayo. I'm picking Cork. I'm picking Clare. And the last one, I'm going to go with Geezer.
So the four home teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Armagh Tyrone's a great game, isn't it?
Oh, an absolute cracker.
Well, it's shit or bust. And it's like, the worst part about it is it's Armagh and Geezer's reputation, just generally being a qualifier genius, is like, this isn't really a qualifier now, because it's actually just an old... now it is straight knockout, so maybe that's the thing that gets their blood up in Armagh. I don't know.
Yeah, Jim McGuinness had an interesting article in the Irish Times, was it over the weekend or late last week, that Tyrone should introduce a lot of the under-20s into their squad to give them a little bit of a lift. Whether they, would Rory Canavan add something to Tyrone? I think he would. And so did Jim McGuinness. Yeah,
he looks ready. It'd be a hell of a decision though, wouldn't it? Given
but they need a spark from somewhere, I think. Now that game might provide it. I mean, there's no love lost there. Cork and Louth is a good draw for both of those counties. They'll both fancy themselves, I think, in that game.
I think Cork should try and play that game in Páirc Uí Rinn again.
Definitely.
There should be no issue there, shouldn't?
No, I don't think so. Not with they would probably expect fewer supporters than would have been with the Kerry game, even though they might try and get more people in. Like it feels, is that the sort of fixture that could give the Cork football fraternity a bit of a boost, where it's like there was an okay performance for 50 minutes and all of a sudden we've got the easiest possible draw. No disrespect allowed, but it is the easiest possible draw they could have got. In that round. So maybe that's the sort of kick that they need, and all of a sudden then if they win that, they're into the last round of the qualifiers, where there's going to be no Monaghan or Mayo or no Armagh or Tyrone. All of a sudden the path is cleared a little bit for those four teams: Clare, Meath, Cork, Louth. Certainly a little bit clearer than it would have been 5 minutes ago.
And then Mayo and Monaghan is that's a cracking tie to look forward to. And Monaghan certainly have a point to prove. They were beaten pretty soundly by Derry in that match that they played in the Ulster Championship semi-final, and then Mayo, there's been virtually no word out of the Mayo camp since the Galway match, so it's hard to know where they're at in terms of their injuries and stuff, but that'll be a cracker, and two well-supported counties as well, so there'll be a bumper crowd in Castlebar for that one.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's like exactly what you want from this round of the qualifiers. It's like, obviously we don't know who they're all going to end up playing, but there is a possibility that we do end up with, if Mayo win that, they could end up drawing Roscommon again. Or is this? It was only in the Tailteann Cup that you weren't allowed to replay.
Well, there will be no replay if it's Roscommon.
Of course.
If it's Galway, they might avoid repeat ties if Roscommon come out on top. It could be if Dublin beat Kildare in the Leinster final, you could have a Mayo Kildare showdown again 4 years on from Newbridge or Nowhere. There's a couple
That'd
of
be in Croker there, though.
Yeah, probably. They will definitely bring 2 of those fixtures to Croke Park, you'd imagine, in the second round of qualifiers. Like, I mean, Derry or Donegal thrown into that mix. All things, if we're predicting this, Limerick are probably going to be in that qualifier draw, and then one of Galway or Roscommon as well. So the ties get more exciting, but there's 2 absolutely massive fixtures there already lined up.
Yeah, so you feel like the football has taken off now from this weekend with the provincial finals.
Yeah, nothing's happened yet.
And then, you've had a couple of blockbuster games here and there, but really now, from now on, this is the...
And the blockbuster games are all largely irrelevant in the overall scheme of whether or not we're going to have a new All-Ireland champion, or if whether our team's going to be legitimate All-Ireland contenders. Unless, of course, there was something fatal that Derry exposed in Tyrone, and Armagh can apply the wooden stake through the heart of the vampire that is Tyrone football. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm not writing Tyrone off just yet, given how easily and how quickly they have managed to turn things around in the past mid-season.
But he just predicted Armagh will beat them, so...
Not writing them off. I did predict a home win, and it'd be interesting to see what the odds are in that one. Is it a 50-50 game? Are Tyrone 2-point favourites?
Just if even, it is. It's because of the venue. I think if Tyrone were at home, I think a lot of people expect the comeback.
And the venues are going to be a big thing here, because they're going to be in the provincial grounds that we've spoken about, where you don't want 20,000 in Croke Park or something like that, where the atmosphere is kind of dead. But like, can you imagine?
This is what Proposal B would have given us. These games. Oh, no one's interested in them. No one wants to see these games. Yes, they do. These are exactly the games everybody wants to see.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, you're going to have bumper crowds that, like, you would imagine Clare and Meath are 2 well-supported counties. There'll be a big Meath contingent down to Ennis, and then Porky Rin for Cork and Louth should be well. There's a good buzz about Louth football despite that loss to Kildare. So
it's bank holiday weekend as well, of course. So, like, I mean, you've got Ennis, Castlebar, Cork, and Armagh as your possible destinations for your
3 out of 4 ain't
bad. Yeah, Cork is a dump, sure.
8:46 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Carl, you were watching the golf last night.
I caught a bit of it. I mean, Rory. 4 birdies in the first 5. He finished 5 under par after his first round, and Justin Thomas finished on 5 under par, and he won the title. So that's where we're at. Just hard.
What level of regret does he have? Does he feel like he had to do what he did, and that's just where his game is?
I don't think he spoke to the media after yesterday either, so he was obviously quite peeved. Now, he had some decent birdie chances coming in as well, and his putter just wasn't quite firing like he might wanted to. But again, it's another missed opportunity, because looking at his round on Thursday, he looked close to flawless. Hit some lovely wedge shots, put it nicely, was in a perfect position. The wind got up a little bit in the next couple of days, and he isn't the best wind player in the world, I don't think. He's quite a high ball flight. So I think it's another one for the missed opportunity category, unfortunately, for Rory. And Seamus Power's in the top 10 as well. So from an Irish point of view, it's the second major in a row that we've had 2 players inside the top 10. Shane Lowry's in the top 10 at the Masters alongside McIlroy. So, from that point of view, it's another good finish. But I mean, the only currency that McIlroy deals in now is major championship titles, and he's still without one since 2014. So, all things considered, I think he'll think it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, so it's more negative than positive, or is it actually like, look, I'm still right there for all of the stuff about my game deserting me and lack of focus and all the stuff that happened, whatever. He's like, he's still right there.
Oh, he is still right there, and I think
if you're him, you're glass half full. If you're the rest of us, it's definitely glass half empty.
Yeah, I think his stats so far this year would suggest that his game is in pretty reasonable shape. He played well at the Wells Fargo as well, obviously the Masters, the final round there. And then again this week he's in the top 10. But I mean, as I say, he only deals in titles right now, and he will take a lot from it, there's no doubt about it. But I mean, for him, there are only 4 real weeks in the year that he really wants to pull it off, and 2 of them have passed already now, and he hasn't got the title that he wants in either of those. So for him, it's major championships or nothing, I think. And like, I mean, it's not at the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination, and he'll just be disappointed that he wasn't a little bit more on it in rounds 2 and 3, whereas he produced in the first and the final round this week. So
this is Justin Thomas's second PGA.
Yeah, second PGA. And I think it probably, like, I mean, Justin Thomas has been regarded as in the top tier players for quite a few years now, and this probably does elevate him to that sort of level, in that it's his second major title at the PGA, obviously, and he is one of the top players in the world, there's no doubt about that. Spare a thought for Meter Pereira. who was leading on the 18th tee, and Mito hit it into the water on the 18th and double bogey the last to lose by a shot. World number 100. His swing on the last, he spoke after, and he was perfectly honest in saying that he was really, really nervous, and you could tell by his swing on the 18th where he carved one into the water on the right and was unable to make bogey, made double and missed out by a shot. So spare thought for him this morning. And obviously Will Zalatoris into the playoff as well and lost by a shot. So it was an unusual format in that there was 3 holes for the playoff, 13, 17 and 18 I think it was, and Thomas birdied 2 at the 3 to take the victory. So that's the second major out of the way, and the next 2, the US Open, the British Open, the Open Championship, coming quick down the tracks as well. So it's all happening.
All right, what else is going on?
Well, let's recap on yesterday's Premier League action, as you have done all morning, of course. Manchester City, the Premier League champions for the 4th time in 5 seasons. 2 goals from substitute Ilkay Gundogan helped them come from 2-0 down to beat Aston Villa 3-2 yesterday. City finishing a point ahead of Liverpool. Liverpool beating Wolves by 3-1 yesterday. At the other end of the table, Burnley suffering relegation. They were beaten by Newcastle by 2-1. Leeds are safe after a 2-1 win over Brentford. And Tottenham claimed the final Champions League spot. That's after they finished 4th at Arsenal's expense after a 5-0 win over Norwich. In the SSE Electricity League Premier Division this evening, Sligo Rovers begin life without Liam Buckley. They take on Derry City just a day on from the departure of their manager. Leaders Shamrock Rovers are away to Drogheda United, while Finn Harps play Dundalk, and elsewhere there are 2 Dublin derbies. St Pat's play host to Bohemians, and UCD go up against Shelbourne at Talca Park. As mentioned, Justin Thomas took victory in the 2nd golf major of the year last night. He beat Will Zalatoris in a 3-hole playoff to win the US PGA Championship at Southern Hills. Both players finished on 5 under par. Thomas's total of 2 under in the playoff was enough to take the title. Rory McIlroy in 8th on 2 under. Seamus Power 1 shot further back, and Shane Lowry finished on 2 over par. In hurling yesterday, Cork progressed to the All-Ireland Series of the Hurling Championship. Their 330 to 124 win over Tipperary, enough to secure 3rd place in the Munster Championship. Waterford are out after suffering a 331 to 222 defeat to Clare in Ennis. While in football, Offaly booked their place in the next round of the Tailteann Cup. That was thanks to a 311 to 213 win over Wexford. Let's recap that All-Ireland qualifier first round draw for you. Armagh versus Tyrone, Mayo versus Monaghan, Clare versus Meath, and Cork against Louth. All of those ties to be played on the weekend of June 4th and 5th. The details of those matches will be confirmed later today. Novak Djokovic gets his French Open tournament underway later today. The world number 1 begins at Roland Garros against Yoshita Noshika of Japan. Before that, 13-time winner in Paris, Rafa Nadal, kicks off his campaign with a game against Jordan Thompson this afternoon. And in the women's singles, world number 1 Iga Swiatek plays Licia Churenko. And in racing, there's an evening card underway at Roscommon later. The first of 7 goes to post there at 4:30.
Carl, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. That's Carl Mullaney. You can hear more from Carl, of course, today, of course, on the Go Loud network of stations and on otbsports.com. It's 8:52. Time for us to turn our attention to the weekend's hurling, and I'm delighted to say Aidan Taggy Fogarty is with us. Aidan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Very interesting weekend of hurling results. Many teams in crisis. Some teams who we thought were in crisis suddenly wriggle off the crisis hook. Looking at you, Wexford and Cork. Let's start though with what we're all looking forward to now most over the next couple of weeks is a 2-week build-up to the next handshake between Henry Shefflin and Brian Cody. You couldn't have scripted it, or you could, and we all would have lapped it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a strange weekend of hurling. All right, yeah. Geez, a lot of teams there, but thought at the beginning of the year were contenders for the All-Ireland, just went out with a flop. But 2 weeks' time, Kilkenny and Galway, in Croke Park. It's going to be very interesting. I think the media and everyone else will be building up the handshake. As I said before, I wonder will even show the game. Will it just be the handshake for 70 minutes? It'll be very interesting to see what the story is. But it's going to be a total different game. Obviously, Galway pipped us in Salt Hill a couple of weeks ago, and that'll be a bit of a driving force for this Kilkenny team, and they won't like that, and it will it'll drive them on a little bit. With Kilkenny, it's hard to know. Like the weekend, it's really week on week with this Kilkenny team. They annihilated Dublin. They played a direct ball, which they didn't get really much. Dublin didn't really put them up to them at all there at the back, and Kilkenny just drove right through them. But Wexford, in fairness to them, came out Saturday night, dropped back O'Keefe, played more of a kind of a defensive system, like they're kind of used to before. You know, lads were giving out about Davy. about how they set up, but maybe that's the way Wexford have to play, attack from deep and drop back. And Kilkenny just were 6s or 7s, I felt, and they went back to what we discussed before about just lumping ball into the full forward line and not get much result from it. But in 2 weeks' time, Ger, I think the whole thing is just going to be a total different game. This championship is just so much on momentum and gaining new players and players coming into form, and the mentality of week-on-week games, the psychology of coming off a big, massive result one weekend, going into maybe a lesser game the weekend after. How do you approach it? There's so many things going on behind the scenes in a round robin. It's just so hard to call week on week.
So you're not reading too much into Kilkenny's performance?
Look, I don't want to be kind of turning sideways and saying, look, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. And the things that came up again was the lack of midfield, the lack of forward play. Like, our best forward was nearly Keane Kenny, and he's just a young lad. He's 20 years of age, which is great to see from a Kilkenny's perspective. But you need more out of maybe the Eoin Cody's. TJ Reid was in and out of it. Billy Ryan came on. It's the old failings, and it's kind of, if Kilkenny don't dominate the game physically and don't win the battle, I suppose like all games, if you don't dominate the games, in the intense battle, the hard work, the fight, you're not going to win it. And Kilkenny, when they don't do that, they don't win. At the minute, when they do it, they're only winning by 3 or 4 points. So when they don't, they're going to be beaten, and that's what I'd be kind of worried about. And Pádraig Welch only coming on, I don't understand Pádraig Welch only coming on. Maybe he was injured, there's rumours he was, but if my eyes, if you're injured, you're not there, you're not playing. So if you come on, you're not injured. And he came on with only 3 minutes to go. Walter Welch was started and John Donnelly. He hasn't got a settled team, and that's what I'm worried about.
Is that because they knew they were already through? Do we need to sometimes bear that in mind, that the psychology of a match where you're going out to physically try and impose yourself on an opponent, it's great if you really have something to play for, but if you've got not that much to play for, you can't just get up to the emotional pitch that you need to get to.
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. Yeah, there's 2 things on that from my view. I think they really, really went for Dublin in Parnell Park, because that was a massive, massive game in my eyes. If they lost that game, they were going into into Nolan Park where they had to win against Wexford. So I think coming out of Dublin, they threw everything at Dublin, and they were coming off a bit of a high, giving them a bit of a trimming. And then Kilkenny's perspective, they were looking at a Wexford side who drew to Westmeath. No disrespect to Westmeath. Westmeath are actually doing very well in this championship after having a great campaign, and are actually a very good team, and are after driving a lot of the top teams close to the end. But Kilkenny were looking at it, probably saying Wexford are after dropping a bit, drawing with Westmeath, coming into the Lions Den, Nolan Park, we should be winning this one. And then from a Wexford perspective, they were coming off the back of, they should be beating Westmeath. Now they have to win in Nolan Park. So I think the psychology of both teams were at total different spectrums. And Kilkenny were saying, right, we should win it. And Wexford were saying, right, we have to win it. And if you look at Wexford lately, they do not fear coming to Nolan Park whatsoever. They don't fear Kilkenny anymore as much as they did. They have been beating them underage. So they were well up for this game. And, listen to Davy Fitz even last night there. He was saying that these boys don't fear Kilkenny at all, and they would have expected to beat Kilkenny even at times. So psychology of games, different weekends, that's what I talked about beforehand. It's hard to balance it.
I think last weekend as well, we wrote off the league entirely. We said if you look at Leinster, you look at Munster, the league just does not matter whatsoever. And one of those storylines was Wexford after the draw with Westmeath. So all of a sudden, are we looking at some of the things that happened to Wexford in the league on a positive level and saying, okay, those storylines are absolutely maintaining their way through the championship now, and Wexford absolutely have a chance of going maybe to an All-Ireland semi-final at least here?
Yeah, as I said, Wexford are a bit of a conundrum. To be honest, I couldn't see him going to a semi-final. I think Wexford are a type of a team that if they get all their balls in place, and if they get the right team, and if they get a bit of luck on the day, and every one of them play really well, and they get their strategy good, that they can beat any team on their day. But I think consistently, they're not good enough to win week on week. They just haven't got the players, and I don't know if they have the actual kind of mentality to kind of put it up to the teams week on week. Physically, I think they're not up to it. But in saying that, they could beat any team on their day.
But they fancy themselves against the Clare team coming off a beating from Limerick. Would they fancy themselves against the Limerick team coming off a beating from Clare? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. No, I wouldn't think so. And as I said, I think they're very lucky to get through. I think they know themselves they're very lucky to get through. They'll be probably playing a Joe McDonough team now, which will probably suit them. They'll get a bit of momentum there. But I just don't think it's in them to get past the bigger teams. Like there's teams in the championship now, Ger, and they're really beginning to get momentum. Like if you look at the Munster championship and the Leinster championship, the 3 teams coming out of Munster will be very, very happy the way they've come out of it. Like if you look at Cork, they've really, really changed their whole season around. And if anything, all the negative talk and all the kind of chat beforehand about how Cork are going, that's after unifying this Cork team, I feel. And yes, they've absolutely made changes. They've changed their game plan. They're gone more direct. And we've always talked about Cork being a summer team. And if you look at the way the championship is, realistically, it's only kind of coming into summer now, even though the championship is nearly halfway over, but it's the 23rd of May. But the ground is going to harden up. It's going to be a summer atmosphere, and that's where Cork really relish. And then if you look at Clare, they've just come out of the blue. Like, who would have said that Clare would have topped the group and in a Munster final? And they made 6 changes the weekend. Obviously, Lohan took the game very importantly because the Munster final at stake. But still, he said to his players that there's places up for grabs. They didn't drop at intensity whatsoever, so they're in a great position. And then if you look at Limerick, they're unbeaten. They were out players like Gillan at stages. They were out Kyle Hayes, Keane, Lynch. But they're still unbeaten and they're still in a Munster final, you know. And from a Leinster point of view, if you look at them teams, Kilkenny, they're hit and miss a small bit. Galway are kind of stumbling over teams but still winning. And Wexford barely got through. So I think on a Leinster point of view, the teams would be kind of maybe a small bit more worried about their form. But in saying that, one game could just change the whole thing.
Those concerns that you have on Wexford in particular about the physicality and the mentality in those big games, did Saturday not change that at all in your view? The fact that like Lee Chin had one of his best games in a while for Wexford,
it's starting as well.
Yeah, that's a huge addition, and they needed to win. Like this, like you say, Kilkenny had nothing to play for. Like there was a permutation that Kilkenny could have got eliminated from Leinster, so it wasn't like they were completely up against a lame duck at the weekend. Is there nothing that you saw on Saturday that would make you question just those questions you would have had around that Wexford mentality?
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. And Kilkenny, I didn't mean to say that Kilkenny had nothing to play for. Kilkenny absolutely had something to play for. Wexford were coming. First of all, we're coming to Nolan Park, which I know for a fact Cody would have talked about it and said this is the Lions' den. No one buddies is on our own patch. All them statements would have been made in the dressing room, and they still beat Kilkenny. But what I'm saying about Wexford is, yes, on their day, that when they're playing the bigger teams, they can absolutely build momentum and get up to that tier. But I think to get up for one victory and beat them, that's nearly sufficient for Wexford. And I don't think they have the players or even the physicality or the mentality to go on and win a semi-final, because if you have to think of the other teams as well, they'll be building, and they'll be coming with the same mentality. It's coming to knockout stages now, and as we've seen, teams with their backs against the wall tend to kind of play better. There's more of a fight in them, there's more of an intensity to them. So I think whoever Wexford are going to play next will be coming in the same boat as, say, Wexford will be as well. So you'll have, say, the McDonough teams, you'll have maybe the Munster teams. Everyone now is going to be building momentum. Everyone's back is against the walls. It's do or die now at this stage, nearly in the championship. And I think Wexford won't be getting up to the same level as the other teams.
Let's talk a little bit about what happened to Waterford. What did happen? What's your instinct about what's gone on there over the last 8 weeks? Is it since we were like, this guy's potential manager of the year material, everything's going great. They've got the club monkey off their back. They've got a national title. They've got the deepest panel we've ever seen them have.
It's phenomenal. I really don't know what's after happening in Waterford, and it's massive. It's really huge. Like if you look at Tipperary, right, they have won a match in the championship, but they've lost so many players. They had a new management in place. They have new lads on the block that have to make their names yet. But as you said, Gerard, with Waterford, they had everything in place. They had a manager of Liam Cahill, really good manager. We talked about him, 3 years on the run. The only thing I can probably see, and now you'd love to know what's inside the camp about what's going on. You'd imagine was happy after the league final. Even the way he took the cup in the league final, he was kind of saying, yeah, better things down the line. We were expecting it. And it never came to fruition. And I just think were they overtrained? Did they peak too soon with the new structure in the year? There's a lot of injuries. De Burke went off early with a kind of muscle injury. Jamie Barron went off injured with a muscle injury. It just looked like they peaked too soon. And I think with Waterford as well, they had no consistency in the picking of their team. So their team has been changed around an awful lot. And De Burke went back full back, Austin Cleason centre back, Jamie Barron corner forward. Stephen Bennett totally went out of the scene altogether. It's just so hard to put your finger on it because they were just going so well. So, were they overtrained? Did they peak too soon? Did they think they were a team that were did they get ahead of themselves? No, were they humble enough to take victory and knowing what's coming down the blocks? But they really just looked disjointed. We talked about a panel. You'd wonder about the Iron Fist and the way it's managed. And Liam Cahill, we tend to know, does manage with kind of an iron fist and look, it's his way or the highway. And rightly so, he is the manager. But players have to buy into that as well. And players maybe not starting, it's fine when you're winning and things like that. But then there's rumblings kind of.
Well, let me specifically ask you about those, because a big deal was made in the aftermath about the team being leaked. Teams, I don't know if teams being leaked is a big deal or not. A team goes in the middle of the week for publication in the match programme, and players get informed. They tell their family, they tell people close to them. I'd say most counties, most teams, most weeks, somebody somewhere knows the team. Is it that big a deal? Like if they'd won that game yesterday, would we be talking about this? Or is it actually sacrosanct, you tell nobody and it's a real sign that something has been breached? What's your take on that?
Yeah, my take on it, lads, would be there'll be something in it. I do think there's something in it. I think, teams get out, different teams get out, but I just suppose, just remember back in my day, I would have never told the team. I would have never heard the team back from somebody else. So I think there is something in it. And I think the big thing about that, telling the team is not a big deal. It's breaking the dressing room code, I suppose. That's what you're really talking about, and the spirit in the dressing room. And I think there is something in it, and I think letting the team out, teams get out, but I think it's more so it's kind of a coating. Now, that wouldn't have been said in the dressing room, but it's easy to say it after the game that team was leaked, and I think it's John Milan was saying it, but I think there is something in it, and I wonder what else was leaked maybe during the week, or what was said, or what wasn't been said. But as I said, it's easy to say it now when they're after been losing. Yeah. Do you know, that kind of way? Yeah. Okay,
that's interesting that you think there is something in it. Then the other
I
thing,
think there is.
The other thing that I was like, I think Liam Cahill's going to end up being a great manager, and it might not be with this group of players. I do feel like sometimes you can try and fix something that's gone wrong, but this isn't football. They're not professionals, and when something like this happens, if you go back one last year, it can frequently be a lost year where you're trying loads of different things, you're making accommodations, you're going against your own instinct, that actually the best thing for him might be to step away and say, I'm going to have to learn from this experience, whatever it was that went wrong, but I'm not going to be able to do it with these players. I don't know, again, what your instinct is and whether or not he should have one more crack at it and try and fix what happened, or if that's actually just spending good money after bad.
Yeah, my initial gut is telling me it's probably time to step away, because I just think he had everything in place, and I just think it was set up for him. Now, it's easy me saying that, and I think Liam Cahill would be a great manager, but it's also a big learning curve for Liam. This is his first real inter-county senior team. Yeah, he's done really good underage, he's done really good with Tipperary underage, but this is a different level, and I suppose it's massive. It's massive to learn. You need to know what's been happening in the camp, how training has been going, what the vibe in training has been, what the body language in training. I think the Cork game last weekend really took the wind out of their sail. That was a must-win for both teams, and they went to Walsh Park, and Cork annihilated them. And I think that really, really was a sucker punch of where do we go from here. They had 7 days to recover. Mentality-wise, we talked about already, psychology-wise, coming down off a game like that, building yourself back up. And when there's doubts in your team, it just sets the tone for the whole panel. And then maybe, as we talked about, the physical side of it, being overtrained and maybe a bit of tiredness, it all accumulates. And that's how management is just such a fine line, and it's a learning curve for Liam. As I said, there'll be a lot of people talking this morning about where did it go wrong. We'll have all the experts, and it's just so hard to put your finger on it. But really, you have to be in the dressing room, and you have to get the vibe. There's a vibe in the air in dressing rooms that you can just pick up on, and I'd love to know what the vibe was all week.
If Waterford want to learn from the mistakes of this year, is Liam Cahill not the best man to help them learn from those mistakes next season, given he would have been partly responsible for them?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. I suppose I did kind of say maybe this time to walk away, but he's there 3 years. But yeah, in saying that, maybe he'll see the mistakes that they did make and things that they need to work on. I'd love to see Waterford in the league next year. How importantly
lose every
they
game.
Take it. They take it. This is it. And about resting, they talk about a panel. Like maybe the likes of Tadgy Fogarty and Jamie Barr and Gleeson, these lads, maybe they just need a bit of a break. They're going to get a break now. They're going to get a 6 months break till January, literally. I know they're back in November and stuff, but do they just need a rest and a break? And maybe you're right. Maybe Liam is the man to come back and just make one more crack at it and learn from his lessons and take on next year. But there'll be an awful lot of pressure on Waterford next year and Liam Cahill next year. And do Waterford deal that well with pressure? I'm not so sure. But another management could destroy the whole thing again.
The other factor in all of this is the potential of external forces here, which weren't strong enough to lure Liam Cahill away to Tipperary last year. Like, are the Tip County Board monitoring the situation and see the value in Liam Cahill and see the age profile of their current team and think now could be the time to try and strike while the iron is hot? Or do they trust Bonner to kind of take them into next year themselves and continue their path from this low base they're at?
Yeah, I think they'll have to trust Bonner, really. There was talks about Liam Cahill going in last year and the County Board beat them and stuff, and Liam going to Waterford. So that was probably a statement from Liam in itself. Now, I can see Liam obviously training Tipperary at some stage. But I think it's up to Bonner. Bonner took on the mantle. He's at the blood in a lot of players. And I think for me, they should stick with Bonner rather than just to be fierce unfair to get rid of Bonner just after 1 year. In the championship where he didn't even win a match, so he'll want another crack at it as well. And how did the county board take Liam Cahill not taking the Tipperary job? It's a massive opportunity. It was your own county, and he still went with Waterford. So would they be too keen to ask Liam back? Maybe not. I'm not too sure. And the flip side of it is Liam has trained a lot of these players that are coming into the Tip team now. They've trained him minor, he trained him under 21, so he knows these guys. So would he be the best man? But for me, I believe in Bonner there, absolutely.
Can I just ask then on Cork, if you were a Cork player, a member of the Cork management right now, would you be more confident of them winning an All-Ireland this year than last year? Granted, they were in the final last year but got annihilated. Does it feel that they've made that step forward over the last 2 weeks alone?
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is crazy, 2 weeks. I actually had written down there, I think a few weeks ago, that the best players weren't getting on the ball. They were too slow. They weren't direct enough. They weren't scoring goals. And all of a sudden, in 2 weeks, the whole thing has just changed. It's not as if I gave the sheet to Kingston right now and he looked at it and said, "Oh, I made to change all these." But it is amazing, and I do think they're in a better position team-wise because of all the controversy at the beginning of the year. Tipperary in 2010. Got annihilated by Cork in a Munster semi-final, I think it was, and there were talks about that they were finished, that they were done, and they went on and won the All-Ireland, beating ourselves for the 5 in a row that year, and turned out to be a phenomenal team. So I think the biggest thing for Cork this year was all the negative talk, all the way they're playing is not the way they play. They're not good enough. I think that will set a bit of steel in them, set a bit of fight in them. And it's nearly Cork against the rest of the country now, and I know that feeling, and they're really after changing their game. They're gone direct, they're getting goals. They have an out ball now in Connolly there, and the ground is going to be hardening, and they're going to be getting into bigger pitches. And I think with the momentum and everything else that's gone behind the scenes, I think they'll really be a really hard team to beat now all of a sudden.
And the schedule is pretty good for them. You can see how they could easily build in over the next while, whereas actually being in a Munster final and losing that game, not great for the morale and the confidence.
Or else Antrim will just beat them.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, imagine that. But
very 2022.
I think it's great. I think a Munster final, I don't think Cork win the Munster final is great, but I don't think that's their ambition. And I think they'll have a great run in meeting one of the Joe McDonagh teams, get more momentum and be flying come a quarter final stage.
Eoin is yerring the Joe McDonagh final there.
I think the draw's been done
All right,
because
so we already know.
I think it's going to be Kerry, Wexford and Antrim, Cork, if I'm not mistaken. And then obviously if Kerry win the McDonagh Cup.
So you don't get a reward for winning the...
I would think because it's a Munster versus a Leinster team, technically Antrim being a Leinster team, it's got to be... I think that's it. I'm 90% sure.
It's just like the Nations League. It's very obvious. Taggy, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
Aidan Taggy Fogarty giving us his thoughts this morning. And wild weekend in the hurling in some ways. And also, it was good that they managed to get everything done and dusted in the first 15 minutes so that you could just flick over and watch the football.
Yeah, that was it. So you
like, hang on.
Dual screen on the football then.
Hang on. What? This game's over. Once the penalty was saved and the goal went in the other end, you're like, okay, grand, game over.
Yeah, like it does. There was such possibilities for drama at the weekend, and Galway being way too good for Dublin really eradicated any real drama on Saturday night, because there were 9 points apiece at one stage well into the first half. You were kind of seeing it on the bottom of the screen on Sky Sports and you thought, wow, Kilkenny could be going out here, which would have been sensational if Dublin managed to kick on. And then yesterday was just a non-event, but it does get you really, really excited for what's about to come this summer.
Alright, calling all cycling enthusiasts and sports fans, Skoda are the official main partner of the Tour de France, and to celebrate on OTB Sports we have literally a once in a lifetime opportunity. This amazing prize is a VIP trip to stage 13 of the Tour de France from the 14th to the 16th of July. So you get flights and accommodation for one winner plus a partner. All you need to do for a chance to win is to be available to travel from the 14th to the 16th of July and let us know who this famous cyclist is.
Gare, what are you? Are you a complete rookie? What are you?
Tweet us at Off the Ball for your answer. Each daily winner wins a €100 one for all voucher and a Skoda cycling jersey, and you'll go into the draw for the grand prize. Best of luck. Skoda drivers, for another chance to win, check out skodaservice.ie. After the ad break, Alan Quinlan's going to join us to reflect on the weekend's rugby. First, Kieran Cunningham and Gavin Casey joined Will O'Callaghan on the Sunday pay-per-view, where the great mystery of sourcing Roy Keane's phone number as a journalist was discussed.
Kieran, when it comes to this piece, typically in Kimmage style, it begins with an anecdote really of him going over to try and chase an interview with Roy Keane. Not just on one occasion, on a couple. It starts with the first attempted interview in 1994, going through to him going over to a game where Manchester United were due to play, I think, Sturm Graz in 2001. And again, Keane proves this slightly elusive figure, which is how Paul is able to set the scene for us here.
Yeah, and he references a lot of stories that I kind of forgotten about and covered. One of them was about Anna Friel, the actress.
In a nightclub.
Mentioning Keane chatting her up and that he was very rude. And that had completely slipped my mind. But yeah, Keane was always difficult to deal with. The third secret of Fatima was Roy Keane's phone number, and anybody who ever passed on his number, he cut all ties with them. So it. There was a piece with Noel Spillane, formerly of the Examiner, in the Sunday Times a few weeks ago, and he detailed how Keane had told him something in a nightclub about the move to Man United. And he printed it, he had to print, it was such a big story. And they had a great relationship from the Forest days. They used to go, they socialised together. He's never spoken to him since. That's the way Keane would be. But, there's all sorts of things. Like, there's references in this. Do you remember the famous photograph after the Netherlands, the win over Netherlands, that Lorraine O'Sullivan of Info took?
The most awkward handshake until recently.
Until the recent one in Salt Hill, with Keane turning away, because Paul Kimmage brings that in. But it's interesting, because have you ever seen the video footage of that handshake?
I think only recently saw it on YouTube.
Yeah, and it shows you how a photograph can be misleading, because Keane is walking off, he sees out of the corner of his eye McCarthy coming towards him.
Coming towards him, yeah.
Yeah, and he turns around and he actually does shake his hand, look him in the eye.
Yeah.
And Lorraine obviously snaps it when he's turning away again. So, but as he says himself in this, it summed up the relationship. I had no respect to.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Newspapers have called it the greatest club game ever.
Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs are joining forces to bring you all the latest analysis, news, interviews and so much more.
The strength of Munster rugby has always been the big boys up front. There's a lot of pressure on these guys continuously.
I'm actually really, really excited for it.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
19 minutes past 9. We'll turn to rugby in a moment. First, here's what's on OTB Sports Radio today. If you want to hear this, by the way, just tell your smart speaker to play OTB Sports Radio, or you can get it just by clicking the radio tab on the OTB Sports app. At 1 o'clock, OTB Gold is Colm Gooch Cooper and the art of corner forward play. Splunk Sport at 3. Culture Hall of Fame is Lenny Abramson, giving us a recommendation at 4. OTB Gold is Joe Malloy meeting Gerald Loughnane, and the show is live tonight with Joe, looking back at the weekend and looking forward to the rest of the week as well. You can follow us across all our social platforms and make sure you hit subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. 20 past 9 though, let's turn to rugby. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you.
Morning lads, how are you?
That was an interesting encounter between Leinster and Munster, because Leinster really not that much to play for. Picked a team that was largely made up of those players who they'd sent to South Africa, which was the second string, and they were still better than a largely first choice Munster team. Like in the long series of Leinster-Munster defeats in recent seasons, this one's surely the worst.
Yeah, it is. It is the worst, I think, because of the players in the field. I know Munster were missing a number of players as well, which do make a difference to them. We've seen a little bit of a positive turn in the last kind of 2 months in the way they've been playing. And the biggest worry and concern, I said it last week for this Munster group, was that if Leinster were to beat them, the steps they've taken forward in the last few weeks would put them back in reverse and, bring up some of the negative narrative that's kind of been associated with this team, and particularly the playing style. I tell you, Gerard, I always talk about stats, and I look at the stats of all games, and stats sometimes can be misleading, because rugby of all games is you can have 30-40% possession and score in crucial moments, and just you can manage the game if you're strong defensively and you're accurate and you're sensible in where you play the game. You can still win. So they can be a bit misleading at times. The stats in this game tell us one story. Leinster 41% possession. So Munster dominated possession of the ball. They had 61% territory, Munster, so they were in the right areas. But the stats would tell me and indicate to me that Munster are a poorly coached side who are not accurate, not clinical with the ball. They're not. They just don't have that ability to kind of strike and get crucial scores at the right time. And that's exactly what this Leinster team the other night did. So it tells me also that, from the opportunities they created, very, very clinical, very comfortable in the way they play. It looks it's easy on the eye. It isn't flamboyant where they're throwing the ball over and back just for the sake of it. They're very, very accurate. They're timing a pass. The lines are running. And Munster are behind, way behind in those stakes, unfortunately, because they're not comfortable and used to playing at that level. And you mentioned there, Leinster had nothing to play for. Well, regarding the league table, they had nothing to play for. But when you have a group of players who were desperate to get up a level and play on the top team and play in Europe for Leinster, players departing, finishing up, Devin Toner, Sean Cronin, they had a fair bit of more, and then you're playing against your biggest rival. So they had huge motivation, and Munster were the team who looked not to have any emotion. They had no emotion and drive, whether they're tired or fatigued, but their accuracy was dreadful. And it was up there with, it's probably the worst defeat. That's the 8th league loss in a row, and that's the reality that you can't hide away from.
Yeah, Munster were beaten by a team half full of football manager regens. Like, you hadn't heard of half the players for Leinster before. Well,
I tell you, Eoin, I was at an event before the game, and I asked somebody, who's Rob Russell? There was a load of Leinster fans there, and they were, it was a bit of banter, a bit of crack, and I asked some of them to name the team, and in all their knowledge, they weren't able to name the team. They were kind of shying away. They were afraid I was going to ask them to to stand up. And I asked one person, who's Rob Russell, and I think one person in the room was there, and that's no disrespect to Rob Russell. He's very, very talented rugby player. Cormac Foley, he was brilliant for him as well, and I think a lot of them just stepped up, and we're going to see a lot more of those young Leinster players. And I think for the young Munster players, the ones that we kind of spoke up in the last few weeks, they just didn't perform. And this is the big stage, and sometimes Munster fans have been frustrated with me over the years for kind of maybe being perceived being overcritical, but you've got to do it in the big games. And, you know, when it comes to Irish selection and everything, the Leinster-Munster game was the one. It was kind of like, with respect to the other provinces, it was the final Irish trial, and unfortunately some of the Munster players have done more damage to themselves now, and the Leinster players have enhanced themselves.
When you say Munster are a poorly coached team, how does that manifest itself in particular on Saturday night? Is it skills execution? Is it just these one-out runners, the consistency of that, which I guess illustrates a lack of a game plan or a lack of an inventive game plan?
Well, it would suggest this to me, Eoin, because from what I can see, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone can come on the show and tell me I'm wrong. When you have a lot of possession and you look like you're going over and back, there seems to be a lot of confusion. And they were under a lot of pressure when they had the ball, because Leinster's line speed was incredibly aggressive. And I talk about the emotion. They looked like a team who were playing for their lives, and where Munster didn't. So Munster, how many passes went to ground? Even when Conor Murray was passing, you can blame Conor Murray for the accuracy to pass, or you can blame the player's shape in attack, that they're standing too flat, they're not running onto the ball, they're not giving him options. So many times Munster were going infield with attack, then they'd bounce back to the blind side where a load of defenders were. They were going one way, back the other way, one way, back the other way, so many times. And I wasn't working at the game. I brought my son to the game and some of his friends, so I was in a pretty relaxed kind of state watching it. And I was just kind of, you know, sometimes when you're on commentary, you're more engrossed on the ball. So I was kind of watching the different shape of Munster's attack at times, and it was just pretty flat. Their lines of running, they were getting each other's way. Their realignment was poor at times. Now, to be fair to them, in the last number of weeks, it's been so much better. But when you come up against a team like they did on Saturday night, are incredibly aggressive and not giving them any time on the ball, I think when you're not used to doing something and you don't have this template in attack and a structure and a kind of set rules about your shape, you come unstuck. So the big picture here is not as bad as the here and now, if that makes sense. So I think they can only get better. I do think there's a lot of good players there. But Leinster are kind of the standard setters, really, in the attack. And you look at the way they're coached. On the flip side, look at the way they ran, the lines they ran, the way they executed their catch-pass situation. A lot of simple stuff, and it's not overly complicated. So it would suggest to me that the attack coach from Munster then hasn't done his job. So they just look at sea and at odds at times when they're trying to attack. In fairness to them, the effort level is there. The commitment, they're trying to attack. Even at the end when they were going for the bonus point, they were just going lateral, over and back. And so you would have to say they're badly coached in attack. And they can get better at that. So for anyone who's thinking this is, I just think it highlights what needs to happen going forward. That and you look at what Stuart Lancaster has done in Leinster, the standards they've set and the way they just can make so many changes, and there's a real template or a game plan that players just seamlessly transition into. So that's where Munster need to get to, or at least try and get to, because they need to improve that whole shape in transition after a number of phases. And that was probably the most disappointing part. Obviously conceding a penalty try from a maul. A couple of times in the first half, Munster had mauled 7-8 yards out. One in particular where Leinster got in and slapped the ball to the ground, and it was given as a scrum. Just not clinical enough in crucial areas. And you can't just go out and say, well, to play the way they've played, and suddenly every pass stick. And I think, against Toulouse, against Exeter, against Ulster, they showed moments that they're trying to attack, and they have tried to change in the last couple of months, but it's too soon really for those crucial moments just to stick and to happen. And that's what Leinster did the other night. They punished them at certain times, and just look at the Cormac Foley try, the line that Kieran Frawley runs off Jamie Osborne, just short little line, so accurate, it's on the money, clean through, one pass try. It's brilliant, and they scored brilliant tries the other night. Where Munster's tries, the Jack O'Donoghue try at the start, that was a brilliant try. In fairness, they're close to the line, but the others then are Mike Haley, pick and go under the post, very, very intelligent out of him, and Conor Murray's one is from an up and under. Where else did they look like they were going to cut Leinster open? They didn't really, and they had a lot of possession. They had only three clean line breaks. Leinster had 7. And again, Munster missed 25 tackles, which is, it's very hard to win a game when you miss 25 tackles. So, of course, there's worries and concerns, but I think the bigger picture regarding the structured game plan and what Munster need to do, and there's no guarantee it'll work.
No, there's a lot on Mike Prendergast's shoulders there, where it's like, he's going to come in and fix this, but it has to be an attitude thing. Like, I know, we're laying this at coaching, but there's also the missed tackles is an attitude thing. Like, the players have to shoulder some of the responsibility here too, surely.
Absolutely, of course. Listen, Ger, and you probably remembered well, I got lambasted in 2016 when I criticised the structure and called for change within the organisation. But it's a business really, and they got to find ways of getting better, and that's what I meant at the time, that things need to be looked at. And a lot of what Leinster are doing is working, and they're producing players, and they have some advantages around numbers in the school system and all that. But if the other provinces want to catch up and close that gap, and people always talk about the gap between, particularly when they ask me, Leinster, Munster, the gap is bigger because there's probably 40 of those Leinster players are on the same page, and the Munster players are not. Okay, it comes down to some quality as well, and Munster are deficient in certain areas, and they need to improve there. But if you put the best Munster team on the field with no injuries, and you have the likes of Ty Byrne and RG Snyman and Coombs and Dave Kilcoyne back, Andrew Conway fit, etc., they still need a better structure in attack, and that's tries, win matches. Good decisions on a rugby field, being comfortable with making good those decisions, and the top end players do that. And unfortunately, Munster, I think they're exhausting sometimes to watch, and it must be exhausting for the players themselves. Of course, they've got to take responsibility, but I think it can get better.
Okay.
And you have to give credit to Leinster. They were fantastic, and they're humming on all fronts at the moment.
Okay, so the quarterfinals are complete that weekend of the June 4th bank holiday weekend. It's Leinster, Glasgow, Bull Sharks, Stormers, Edinburgh, and Ulster at home to Munster, and they're now on the same side of the draw. I think the draw, they should be on the same side as the Stormers in Edinburgh. So it's not beyond the bounds possibility that Munster can rescue this. However, you would definitely make Ulster favourites at home in Ravenhill on the basis of what we've seen recently.
Yeah, well, Munster, if they were to win in Belfast, they're away on the road, then again the semi-finals. So it's their own doing. And if you lose 7 league games, it's hard to justify. Of course, it can happen. And the frustrating thing is they'll probably get way up for this game again and probably put in a really good performance in Belfast. It's winnable. I don't think Dan McFarland would have, if you give him a choice, he would have preferred someone else coming to the Kingspan. But it could have been the Bulls at home if they got 2 losing bonus points. But it's not all doom and gloom, and I want to kind of stress that again. This is not a surprise, Jared. This is not a surprise. Saturday night was a surprise, but it's not a surprise that the season potentially could peter out with negative performances, negative results. As I said, if you're not comfortable with doing something and kind of performing at a certain level in attack, it's hard to kind of just change that and for it to happen in the space of a couple of months. So, they can go to Belfast, of course. The last time they won there a number of weeks ago, they played very well. They controlled the game. Physically, they were very good, and they were probably, Ulster won't. They're very, very dangerous, I think, and they showed that in their performance. The worrying part for Dan McFarlane is how porous they were at times with some of the Sharks' tries the other night and the way they came back into the game. The difference the next time they play, if he's fit, is Dwayne Vermeulen. I think he didn't play in that game a number of weeks ago, and he's been kind of a really important presence for Ulster this season.
Okay. Good weekend other than that, though, for your Tipperary hurlers and Liverpool?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I was afraid you were going to say that, Joe. Yeah, disaster. Got a little bit of a taste just of what was happening in the Premiership. Jesus, when Villa were 2 up. I was then focused on Liverpool trying to score, but no good. And not a surprise, really. At least they won in the end. It'd be worse if City lost or drew and Liverpool didn't win. But Tip worrying time for Tip as well. They were well beaten yesterday by Cork. So not a great weekend, but you have weekends like that. Sometimes you have the Carlsberg weekends, so it's wasn't a good one, no.
100%. Alan, we'll let you go. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
It's Alan Quinlan giving us some thoughts on the situation with Munster. Was it the worst? Is it?
Yeah, it probably is in isolation. It probably feels a bit more raw, given it's only 48 hours ago. But it's also the nature of the team that Leinster put out that really kind of opens up a chasm here. And also the real concern that is there a mental block with Munster at the moment when it comes to Leinster, that regardless of all the quality that Leinster have, Munster just have there's a bit of a hoodoo going on here.
Yeah, well, when the teams were named, Munster were favourites to win the game. Like, you did expect it. Look, let's wait and see what Munster are like when they have Snyman in the team, and if that's this transformative Snyman and
keep saying that though,
the new backroom team. And the other thing is that, like, it's rugby. There's always 20% of your first team injured, because that's the way it goes.
Yeah,
like
waiting for Snyman is probably not going to be the greatest policy for Munster hope over the next little while. It'll help for sure.
Sounds like a Beckett.
I was just about to say, yeah.
I mean, the reason there's no interval in the Beckett plays is because they're all so bleak. Everybody would leave at half time.
I was just about to say, which is more bleak, the work of Beckett or the Van Graan Munster era?
There's the YouTube headline. 9:37 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning. Is it?
Of course Munster's more bleak.
It's 50-50.
I mean, I would never downplay the work of Samuel Beckett in such a way. That's what the joke was, obviously.
We'll come back to that one. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back tomorrow morning for 7:30 with Leinster and Ireland lock James Ryan, a 20th anniversary Saipan special with those involved at the time, plus much more. We might be over promising and under delivering on that one come tomorrow.
The media had a big part to play in 2002.
Do you care anymore? Have you had enough? Are you Saipanned out?
Not really, because I think we've kind of swerved Saipan for so long for fear of being Saipanned out to the point that I'm ready for Saipan again.
Are you? Okay. I'm not sure. I'm definitely in two minds about the whole thing.
Yeah, why? Just you're constantly PTSD?
No, because it was we were alive. My thing about we want to feel alive. We definitely felt alive during that. Didn't work out.
That was your big breakout. You and John Delaney in the room. You with the earring in.
I should put it back in for the piece tomorrow, shouldn't I?
You should actually.
If I can find it, I will. Right now, we're going to leave you with a collection of OTB's live reports on the weekend's hurling, and it was an interesting weekend in hurling. I think Wexford certainly put a cat amongst the pigeons, or a dog amongst the cats. Would that be better? Would that be the correct way to sign this off? Right. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.
Disappointing evening. You're a proud Laois man. You've given so much Laois hurling over the years. It just didn't happen this evening.
Yeah, that's true. Tomas just seemed to be very flat all over the field, really, I suppose, for all of the game, really. And you can congratulate Westmeath first. They were the better team right throughout the game, and probably all facets of the game, really. And probably didn't really show that till the second half, but Yeah, we just didn't get to the cutting edge of the game at any stage, and it's just difficult to put your finger on that. Training's been really, really good. Did we carry our training on the training field out to today? No, we didn't. And it's difficult to put your finger on it, and it's probably difficult also. I think we'd really, just looking back at the championship, I suppose, pre-championship, we had a really good preparation. I may have said this before, that I think we had a training camp, pre-championship training camp was really, really good. I remember coming out of that thinking that, our team was in a great position. And it just didn't happen. I thought the first game against Dublin was a really cracking game. We probably could have won the match. And we didn't, and we just lost so many bodies along the way, and just seemed to lose confidence in ourselves along the way as well. And that maybe showed a little bit today, because we just didn't get stuck into the game today. And that's fierce disappointing. It's fierce disappointing for the players as well, not necessarily for ourselves. Inter-county players now have probably maybe a window, maybe 10 years, and you don't want to lose any years. But look, the reality of it is Laois is in the Joe McDonagh next year, and that equally is going to be tough to come out of. You could look at, for example, Offaly today, who looked like they were going to go into a Joe McDonagh final and didn't make it. So it's going to be a tough competition to get out of next year as well. But that chat is probably for a different day.
Picky had a goal chance, didn't take it. Westmeath took all their goal chances, and at the end of the day, that's the difference really. When goals win games, if Picky got that goal, it could have been a different story.
Yeah, no, it may have had Tomas, but it was probably a pretty vital part of the game. We had the breeze in the first half, but over the course of the whole game, Westmeath were the better team, and they were probably better in most phases of the play as well. And they just seemed to be more hungry for the game and that than we were. And again, it's very, very difficult to put your finger on what those are. So just have to team has got to regroup and get itself ready for Joe McDonagh next year.
You're not necessarily there now, I know you're talking about it, but there is a possibility that obviously Kerry could beat Antrim in the final of the Joe McDonagh, which would preserve Laois. But we've been beaten solidly in all 5 of our games. Is there an argument that sometimes you need to step back to step forward? I know, I don't believe that. First of all, I don't believe the first part either. I thought we could have beaten Dublin the first day, and clearly if we had the likes of Picky or Willie Dunphy to come on at that stage or late in the game, that could have tilted for us, and winning a game like that then could give you the momentum to move on to the next game. Instead of that, we actually lose momentum and lose confidence. But to get back to your second question, I don't believe that. I believe this team, and I've believed from the start of the championship, that this team is good enough to play at this level. I think I might have said it before, that I think, looking at the championship, clearly it is an All-Ireland championship. You're in the premier of hurling here, and any of these counties could go on and win an All-Ireland. So this is not second-tier championship hurling. Nonetheless, I think this team is good enough to do that. And, I said it earlier, that I think the team, and I thought before the championship, that the team had the ability to win matches and to bring the top teams down to the wire. And when you look at the actual championship and how it has unfolded, that's what's happened with all of the other teams. None of the teams have won all matches. This is how competitive and how such a high grade that you're playing in. And I think this team belongs to that. We didn't perform like that, and we're all just so hugely disappointed about that. I can make the excuse of so many injuries. I think at one stage we had maybe 7 or 8 of our first team injured, and no county probably can carry that, and particularly the Laois of this world can't carry. You just don't have the strength and depth of experienced players to be able to replace them with. And I go back to that Dublin match. I think even in the last 10 or 15 minutes, if we had the experience of Picky or Willie Dunphy to bring in, I'm just using those 2 players to bring in at that stage. And out of that match, we lost 2 more players, Roddy King and Podge, and they were missing for the whole championship, you could say. I have to give fair credit to our physio people and our medical people today, the patch up people to get them on the field. But having said all of that, I just want to go back to your question. I think Laois have the ability to that. The
the hurling, the speed of hurling, the physicality of the hurling is a night and day between Joe Mack and Premiership hurling. Night and day, and I think a lot of people don't realise that. But for the Laois of this world, and as it is now for Westmeath, you need to be consistently playing at that level and having the volume of players and volume of quality players to continue to play at that level and be able to take the hits then, I suppose, of numbers of injuries and all of that. And we see what that does for even a county with the history of Tipperary when they're missing a number of players. You know, we see the hit that it makes on them. But I just don't want to answer your question in that vein. You've asked me a question about the quality of Laois hurling. I think this team has it, and I think this team has the ability to really contest at this level, but it's going to have to get back and regroup. I think there's a lot of positives from this year. I think maybe half our panel is probably under 21. The under 20s had a good championship this year. The minors had a good championship last Monday night. There's clearly young players coming on to fill those jerseys and contest those jerseys, I suppose, first of all, and have a go out of it, although they have a lot of ground to make up to this level of hurling. So I think there's
Where's the best place to do that, I wonder? When you're trying to develop these assets, because it's not much use to them getting tanked like that.
I think that's a slightly different question. That's a development question, and you cannot. There's no point in talking about development players in the senior dressing room. They should come into the senior dressing room fully developed at that stage. That's a sort of a different answer, or a different question, I think, to be asked. But if you ask, is the quality in our dressing room? Yes, I do believe it is. How we got it out of it? No, we don't. No, we haven't. And that's going to have to get analysed and figured out about how that needs to get done.
Cheddar, what's your future now? Do you plan to stick around, or do you give it a couple of weeks and see how it falls?
We just put our heart and soul into this game, Tomas, this week. Absolutely no thoughts given to anything else. All of those stuff is down the road, across those bridges a little bit later on.
In the end, as they said, their job done. You're in the Leinster final.
Yeah, Niall, I suppose that was the objective today, and a lot of the games up to now, you're probably even last weekend, you're looking for performance and a flow and passages of play and a pattern of play. I think in advance tonight for any team, it was probably just getting the result that was required, and that's what we did.
You mentioned you were looking for a flow. Probably the first half, a bit stop-start. There was a lot of frees given either side that maybe nullified the fact that it wasn't that free-flowing in that first half.
Yeah, unfortunately, it never really flowed, and there was a lot of bodies around the middle third. So when you break a line, and you could see Johnny's hand going up, and I suppose he was probably trying to play advantage, but it never really materialised for either team. So that means it was called back. So. It wasn't, but there was a strong breeze out there, and we knew that we would have to work very hard, and I thought our pattern of play wasn't brilliant, but I thought our work rate was extremely high, and that was very pleasing. We turned them over a lot and won a few frees from that aspect of it. So first half wasn't brilliant, but I thought we worked hard and we had ourselves in a good position facing with the breeze in the second half. And obviously Conor Whelan obviously came to the fore in that second half, and obviously helped us to give us that bit of cushion heading down the home straight.
And you mentioned Conor Whelan, he got 5 points, but every time the ball went in, there was a buzz in the crowd as well when he was getting on that ball. Yeah, no, and in the first half, he found Owen O'Donnell very difficult, and I think it's just a testament to the kind of players, and that's what we were looking for, those leaders to step up, and he was finding it difficult, but he turned it around masterfully in the second half. And when you get good quality ball into Conor, he can do damage. But I thought even Brian Concannon around him, Keane, they were working very hard and probably trying to create some space for him. So yeah, it was good, and we probably needed someone like that, and that's what you look for in these games, scrappy kind of tight games. You're looking for someone to kind of take the lead. And obviously it's a fiercely competitive Leinster Championship. You got 9 points out of 10. I'm sure you would have taken that at the start. Yeah, definitely so. The first day we spoke to you, obviously down in Wexford Park, we were probably cursing our luck a little bit, but to be fair to the lads, they've done what has been required every day, and it's been up and down kind of performance, but as I said, the objective was to get out, and the objective then was to get to the Leinster final, and we've achieved both of those, which is great. And you're playing Kilkenny again in the Leinster final? Yeah, obviously just heard the result there coming through. So, but I think for us, it's and every team, I think it is. It's about recovery, seeing how the knocks are, and reassess things and look forward then to the next couple of weeks. And we have 2 weeks again, which is a bit of a change. We had it in the middle of this campaign, but I suppose it's been week on, week off. And I think one of the opportunities it gives to us, Niall, is that we've had players on the panel who are probably not getting as much game time in training, so we'll get a bit of that into them, and they've been playing with their clubs as well, which is great to see. And I think we'll continue with that, and hopefully those lads will be pushing hard to
get into the 26 or get into the 15.
And you have a couple of injuries coming off today as well. Obviously, David Burke, we could see straight away that he signalled that he was in trouble, and Pádraig Mannion went off as well late on.
Yeah, a couple of ankles, and Brendan Cannon come off with a bit of a hamstring tightness, but I think every dressing room at this stage is going to have those kind of knocks. So, look, hopefully, again, it's too early to call, and we'll just assess things as this week goes on.
It's hard to believe this stage of the championship. Obviously, you have 5 games played in May, which was unheard of really for teams, probably when you're playing yourself, obviously, to have 5 competitive games over at this stage of the year.
Yeah, and that was the concern when you started out in this campaign. It was that you could be finished in May, and Dublin unfortunately are finished tonight in May, and I said that is hard to take, but I said it is 5 competitive games, and you know, to those 20 players that are getting game time, it's a great opportunity. They love playing games, so if you can keep the injuries somewhere right, and as I said, we have good to see Jason and Ronan coming back in again tonight, so again they'll get more game time during this week as well.
And finally, can I ask you a word on the Galway support? A huge support here again tonight, over 10,000, 14,000 here the last day. They're really getting behind this team. Yeah, no, I must say, and we've said that inside, you know, and this is our last game tonight is in Pearse Stadium this year, and we've done very well. I think we've played 6 and won 5, so and each day the crowd has been very supportive of ourselves, and obviously the last day against Kilkenny they nearly egged that Conor Whelan ball over, Conor Cooney ball over the bar, and even tonight they were looking for something to get behind us, and no, it's very much appreciated, and hopefully as we head into the Leinster final they'll continue to follow this team.
When you were planning at the beginning of the year, was getting to the Leinster final, was that a priority, Henry?
Truthfully, it was to get out of the top 3, and our league campaign probably hadn't been brilliant, so you know there was 4 teams there vying for those 3 positions, so it was to just make that 3rd position. Even this week it was probably a little bit comfortable for ourselves in the sense that we knew that we had the cushion, but obviously once we got to 7 points it was all about getting to 9 points and reaching that Leinster final, because I think all the teams have shown it over the years with round robin, the direct route is probably the best way you can go, so I think you can just try and continue with performance and trying to get to finals. It's always good to get to finals, so that's where we've ended up.
And you were level 8 times in the first half. There was never really an opportunity to break away, so were you happy at half time?
I wouldn't say I was necessarily happy. I thought, but the breeze was strong, you know, and I thought it looked like we got a bit of a handle on it just before half time, and we kind of went 3 points ahead, and they came back to the last 2 scores before half time. But I just knew that, look, if we had a phase of play where we got a couple of scores and stringed it together, I think we did that pretty quickly in the second half. You know, the wind was strong and was going to be a factor in the game. And then obviously, you know, if you can keep it tighter on the back and not concede any goals, which was great to see our 2nd week in a row without conceding goals. So those were all factors in it, you know.
When the penalty didn't go in, you upped your game. Is that part of what the character of this team is all about?
Well, I don't know, you're looking for identity, and your identity should be your worker, and to be fair to Conor Cooney, you know, missed a few frees, missed the penalty, but he was probably, I'd say, the biggest tackler out there tonight. He put in a serious shift, so that's what you're looking for, and these lads are putting in, and all the teams are putting in massive effort that we don't see, you know, behind the scenes and recoveries and gym work and all this kind of stuff, so it's great to see them really put that on the line then and work very hard and try their best, and that's what they're doing.
And going in against Kilkenny into a final, will it have the game that was played a few weeks ago? Are you both managers, will you be starting from a blank canvas, or will there be a bearing from what happened in the game before on the field?
I don't think so. I think every game takes on a life of its own, and it's a cliche, but it's so true. So I would imagine there'll be different personnel on the field and everything like that. So no, it's a final, but it's another game, and both teams will see how they go and prepare for it, and you know, best team will win thereafter.
Are you a bit surprised by that result in Nolan Park this evening?
I don't know, I haven't really. I just heard the results just before I came out.
4 wins on the bounce, Henry. You carry in serious momentum now. How important do you think that is going into a Leinster final?
I don't think it really is, because I think it was always about just qualifying, and I think, you know, the group stages will be in the past now, and you know, it's a one-off match, and it's probably, you know, it's getting to the phase of knockout championship nearly, you know, so the final should be like that.
You appear to have a very settled team, like it's very little changes in terms of the starting lineup. How close are people on the fringes to break it in, will say?
Well, I'd love to see more opportunity for them to showcase how close they are, and unfortunately it is difficult. You come on the match with 15-20 minutes to go, and the match is kind of at full pace, and sometimes it's slowing down. There's a lot of substitutes going on in and out, and it's very hard to get into the rhythm of the game. So that is challenging, and it's challenging for the lads outside the 26 and the lads that are probably not getting in as well. So that's why the clubs and playing with your clubs, I think, is very important, and then obviously trying to get some game time, and you have to marry that with not giving too much game time to the players that are playing week in, week out. So So it's just a difficult task, but look, that's what you have to do.
Of course, you were looking for.
No, not by a long shot. Really disappointing again today, and just, I suppose, the whole lack of energy around the field, and players' movement was exceptional today. They seemed to have a lot of players giving options on the ball, and we just couldn't seem to cope with it. And look, it's disappointing for everybody. The Waterford people that have travelled here today, there was a good few of them around as we came in on the bus there again, and fair play to them, the real diehards. Very disappointed for the Waterford supporters that packed out Welsh Park as well last weekend, and I'd love to have answers, but I just haven't any at the moment.
And looking back over the year, taking into consideration that you won the league, how would you sum up that year?
Sure, it's the championship is the judge, really, isn't it? Our prep was through the league, and when we ended up in the latter stages of the league, we wanted to go on and win it, and we done so. I thought, that would really give us the little bit of a, I suppose, G-up we need to try and kick on into a good championship campaign. But as of the last 3 weeks in particular, I just don't know where we've kind of fell off the wagon.
Looking ahead now, you're going to have to look ahead now to next year. You've got good players in key positions. The future is bright. I know it doesn't look like that at the moment.
I know these players, like, the admiration and respect I have for these players, and Mikey Beavens, and the addition of Tony Brown this year, he's been absolutely top class, with Stephen Frampton as well over the last 3 years. We really felt we had a real I suppose a real good thing going in that regard, as regards management and putting the platforms in place for these players to perform. And to be fair to these players, they have performed a high percentage of the time. That's just not them, and I know that's not them, and they know that as well, and there's nobody hurting more than them. I know I can be hard on them when they don't deliver when you really want them to, and I've never really had to get cross with these players only once or twice during my reign here, when they didn't hurl to the form they're capable of, and I'm just so disappointed for them, really, and everybody associated with the setup.
A number of changes, Liam, before throw-in. Were they down to injuries, or what was the reason behind it?
Down to injuries, not really, Gavin. We had to be seen to come with something new. We didn't perform to our capabilities in Welsh Park last week, and that's always been our mantra here in Waterford, that if you don't perform, we feel we have a good strong panel, and players behind me on the subs bench get their opportunity to step in. So we tried that today, and it obviously didn't work in a lot of areas, but look, it's bitterly disappointing. I just can't really explain as to why we arrived in the way we arrived today,
Yeah, and you said it was all about the championship, as that's what players would be judged on, but how disappointing is it, I suppose, to have 3 defeats now in the last 3 games after such a positive start? Yeah,
it is. Look, it's very, very obvious. We're really, really disappointed. What can I say? Nobody went out for that to happen. I know the players are hurting massively inside. Like they really know that that's not a true reflection today, and even last Sunday, of their true selves. And I've no problems in saying, like, it's my responsibility to have them right too. It's my job to get them right when they hit the white lines to perform, and I have to look at that as well. Maybe we didn't get it right from a preparation perspective. I don't know, but whatever happened over the last 3 weeks, anyway, it hasn't been good, and it's as I said, I'm just so disappointed for the players that ultimately put in all the work.
Have you felt confidence kind of drain over the last few weeks?
Look, there's a lot spoken, Malachy, and written about Waterford in general, that they don't do pressure, and expectations shouldn't be put on their shoulders and all that, and I don't think that weighs hard on these players. These players are not responsible for the history that's there of not winning in All Ireland. They can only hurl in the now, and that's what we're trying to do. And like, there's massive players, like when this team are in full flow, like they're a joy to watch. You all know that. I think the whole country knows that, and it's just the form wasn't there as of last Sunday and again today, and what do? You put it behind you and you try to go back to the field and put it right in the field. That's the only place you can put it right, and it's going to be a long summer. We'll have plenty of time to reflect on it.
You plan on sticking with the game? Like you showed them a big commitment yourself last year. Do you plan on staying? Today is obviously, as I said, very, very disappointing.
it's something that we won't make a rash decision on now. But you'd have to say from my side, I just wonder what else can be done really to bring these guys to the next level. I'm not sure. I'm quite happy to sit down with these players. I have a very, very good, healthy relationship with every one of these players. They're extremely honest men, and before I do anything, I'll definitely sit down with them and see where their heads are at first before we do anything too rash.
After the league, there was a certain vibe that you had the strongest squad, and that didn't weigh in any way on Waterford in general, that they were being billed as the nearest challengers to Limerick, even though results did reflect that in recent years.
Look, what can you do? You can only control what you can, control. We'd like to have thought we had a good understanding inside and in the environment we've created to be able to deal with the likes of that. And look, the bottom line is, if you're going to be one of the best teams in the country, you're going to have to deal with that and just get on with it. And these players are going to have to learn with that, because they will put themselves back in that position again, because talent like that just doesn't go away overnight, and they're going to meet that obstacle again. And I suppose, if they do, we'll just have to deal with it that bit differently, and just understand that we can't just curl up and die under it, which is like what has seemed to have happened over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So it's questions that have to be answered by everybody, but particularly, I suppose, the players.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports